What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out of appreciation and thanks to Lost Cat FE, new Patreon. Thank you very much for joining me on Patreon. Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Henrik86, Dick Earth Skeptic, TheFlatEarthChannel.com, Chris Hillman, NA Literalist, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, Burn Fat Till My Stomach is as Flat as the Earth, Nathan Thompson, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Missouri Bear, Liam Nedrick, Dank, Owen Jennisons, Abraham Mohammed, Dave Rakia Gafford, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, Felix Hung, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, Kirsten Smith, Tina Baker, Alexander Main, and David Wayne Foster. So a extra specially big thanks to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. The reason I'm giving an extra specially big thanks to those of you who support me on Patreon is I've currently had a numerous amount of things break all exactly the same time. So I'm about to turn 40, and as Sod's Law is the case, I've ended up purchasing a piece of equipment. I'm like, I'm going to turn 40. I've seen a piece of equipment that I've been waiting to turn up secondhand for a huge period of time, and it turned up on eBay. So I was like, I want one of those. I'm going to buy it. I'm turning 40. It's my midlife crisis splurge, so I'm going to buy a subwoofer. So I did. I dropped £500 on this thing, and a massive shout out to a few people who I was telling about this and actually dropped me a few PayPal donations while I was mentioning it. So a massive shout out to you too. Because I really appreciate it. However, the reason Patreon was set up, and it's the thing I put on under the Patreon blurb, is that I want to maintain all of my show equipment. Everything I use to run the show is typically maintained by the contributions of those of you who support me on Patreon. And that's what I try and do. I try and put the money from Patreon into various things to either improve the show or keep the show maintained. And at the moment, it's definitely maintenance, as I sent off an amplifier, coincidentally the one that's going to power the new subwoofer I've bought, because it's been broken for a number of years. And having had another amp fixed via the contributions of Patreon, I've sent that particular amp off to be repaired, and then I bought this subwoofer, and then my fridge blew up, and then this other amp, the one I actually used to run the show, has also gone bang. So I don't know, about a year ago when I first set up Patreon, maybe it was a bit longer, one of the first things I did was get one of the mono amps that I used to run the show fixed because it had been broken for a long time. So that went off, and then the matching mono has also gone in literally yesterday. So I looked at my wife with a look as if to say, "Oh, great!" So when I'm about to get the 3-channel amplifier back to hopefully get the thing actually properly working for the first time in about 10 years, another mono goes. So I've boxed that up this morning, shipped it off via UPS, and so today more than ever I want a big shout out to all the people on Patreon, because they are the people who mean that I can actually get these things mended. I've actually got the funds to do it. That said, I'm really broke at the moment, so a few extra Patreons are definitely not not unwelcome. So another big shout out to Lost Cat FE. Really appreciate you joining at the moment. I cannot deny it. Anyway, enough of my blurb about Patreon. Another big thank you to everyone who does support me on Patreon. I really do appreciate it. So I'm going to raise the mic on Discord and G+, and you can enjoy their conversation rather than me babbling on about broken fridges and broken amplifiers.
Hey.
Hello, Sleeping Warrior. Unfortunately, damn it, I've got to press different buttons today.
That must be a chore.
One of my amps blew up.
Again?
Not again, it's a different amp. So the one that... Do you remember when I first got Patreon and told everyone all about how I was really grateful because one of my amps had blown up and it just sat there broken for a long time, and I sent it off and got it fixed. Wonderful.
Yes, that one.
Yeah. Well, the matching one, the other one, because it's a mono, that went yesterday. So I looked at my wife. I could have cried. Because in the space of a few days, I've just done this as an intro, because I was like, really appreciate my Patreons at the moment. Thank you, Patreons, because everything's gone wrong, like literally in the space of a few days. So, you know how happy I was when I contacted you. I'm like, do you want my old subwoofer? I've bought a new one. I'm really happy with myself. Yeah. Well, after spending a huge wedge, everything broke all at the same time. Horrendous.
It's always the way. You just get yourself straight and level, pardon the pun, and then a curveball comes in from the side and wipes you out.
Well, it's not even curved level, so I really couldn't afford the sub. It was just by chance that the exact one I wanted, the very specific one, I'm fussy, came up for a bit more than I wanted, and a few people contributed to it via PayPal. Like I was mentioning it in like a rerun, Hey Quantum Eraser, and they're like, here, and they just sent me PayPals. I'm like, wow, I kind of got about it now. So I went a little bit into debt for it. But a little bit into debt, that's okay. until your fridge sets on fire and one of your amp goes pop, and there's a whole bunch of other things that have happened, but I won't bore you with that. Sorry to the audience who've listened to that boring conversation twice. From once to you, the audience, and now the same exact conversation to Sleeping Warrior.
Did you see the...
We love tech stuff.
Sorry, say again, Neil?
We love tech stuff.
Yeah, tech's cool. Expensive, but cool.
It is, other than when after doing the intro and raising the mic on you, I saw the line dancing up and down. I'm like, why isn't it working? Well, I haven't got any amplifiers. I need to press lots of different buttons, don't I? That's why it didn't work. So I had a little moment after explaining how thankful I am, where I forgot why it wasn't working, and it's because there's nothing on the shelf to actually power any of the, excuse my French, any of the effing speakers. None of it works. 5 of the 6 channels are in repair. It's just terrible. I shouldn't be laughing. I'm actually really devastated about all this.
Good morning.
Hey, 10th.
Morning.
I came on when Sleeping Warrior said 10th was cool. Is that what I heard?
No, I never said that.
10th was cool?
10th is cool, though. I'll go with that. That's definitely true.
I definitely did not say that.
I heard you say 10th is cool. Come on, man.
I never said that, but you can think I said that.
Oh, I remember. You said tech. Tech was cool.
Tech was cool, yeah. Yeah, tech. Like I said, I never said that, but you can think I said that.
Okay, thank you. I did think you said that. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, that's contextually incorrect. A mishearing of something isn't the same as somebody quite literally telling you that something is not something, and then telling you that you can think of it as that thing that they've just told you that it isn't. So, for example...
I've been bailed out. Thank you.
Yeah, mishearing or misspeaking isn't the same as somebody saying gravity's not a force, but you can think of it as a force. This table is not a chicken, but you can think of it as a chicken.
It's like that Ancient Aliens guy. Did you see the meme I put up, Nathan?
No, I didn't. I'm sorry. Where did you put it up?
It's fucking quality. I'll send it to you on Skype. I know the Discord guys won't see it, but it's still worth sending. Where the fuck is it? I sent it to Arwin, so copy it from Arwin. So you know, Nathan Oakley, send, paste.
Remind me to compliment Arwin while he's not here, because I don't want him getting his head all massive.
You know, when they compare us to like stupid things, like in the context of a meme, this is probably the best meme that we can have. And it's George Musa and that guy from Ancient Aliens, that Giorgio Sorios or whatever his name is. And obviously, like he said, I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens, right? Do you remember him saying that?
Yeah,
yes, seen that?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's just the same as saying, I'm not saying gravity is a force, but you can think of it as a force. That's how stupid it is.
No, it's worse. It's worse.
They don't see it.
No, it's much worse. He's literally saying it is not a, but you can think of it as a.
Yeah, well, he said, I'm not saying it is aliens, but it is aliens. it's the exact same thing for me, that.
I think Moose's worse. Because he's not only telling you it isn't something, he's then telling you to think about it as being that exact thing he's just told you it's not. I think that's much worse.
Hey, Nathan.
Hello.
Nathan, I got a cat. Hello, everyone. I've got a cat in my house, but it's not a fish. But I'm gonna treat my cat like a fish.
Yeah, I'm gonna think of it as a fish.
Don't think of it as a fish.
I hope you're not actually gonna drown it. You were being satirical there, right? Just for the audience.
I'm really.
I don't think that was even thought or implied. It took me a second to figure out what the hell you were talking about. No, that wasn't implied by him at all. No.
I know, but there are some literalists out there that will take his words literally and
Will
think that
they?
as if, like, strangle.
Those people need committing.
Yeah, they will. They will. You know they will, Nathan.
Yeah, they need committing.
Yeah, they do need committing.
They can think of it literally. He's going to drown the cat, but he doesn't literally have to drown the cat.
He doesn't even have a cat or a dog or a fish. But you can think of it.
So is it a Lamborghini? No, it's not a Lamborghini. But you can think of it as a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
It
There's so
purrs
many
like a
ways-
Lamborghini.
So many ways you can apply that saying. It's brilliant. And to think that he spent a week hating on me because of it as well. It's like, wow.
That's just overcompensation.
Of course.
Pathetic, really. They project out so much and they're so dumb they don't realise they're doing it.
I know.
Well, actually, I was in Emma's server just a few minutes ago, and Don was in there trying to talk about, water level with Bev and all that stuff, and then he invoked forces can cause water to bend and take all kinds of shapes. And I said, well, what is this force that you're talking about? Of course, it went to gravity, which is funny you guys were talking about it. And then I pulled this trick on him. I says, well, you're saying it's A and not A at the same time. It's the law of non-contradiction. And of course, but not too long after that, he rage quit and left.
Yeah, Dawn's one of those stupid people that thinks he's intelligent. And ridicules you for it. Ridicules you for not being intelligent as he's being stupid. It's unreal.
Dunning-Kruger.
Yeah.
So, when I listen back to the shows recently, normally I'll shut people down when I'm in the middle of an argument with somebody, but in the last few shows, Arwin will interject and will be like so on point and so concise. I don't know if I'm going to take credit for it. Maybe it's because I'm shutting him down. He's just got to get his bit in so concisely. But man, he's been on fire the last few shows. Have you been listening to Arwin?
Yeah, I've noticed it a few times. He's flipped. He's gone from being that annoying guy that'll interject and start arguing their points for them to being that guy that now interjects and actually makes some credible quality comments that fits the conversation.
Well put. Exactly. He's gone from, my expectation is, he's just going to come in with some sarcastic baller point just for a laugh. And instead, he comes in and he's like, cuts the argument in half immediately. You're like, wow.
He's took over the mantle from Chocolate. Chocolate used to do that.
Chocolate still does do that.
He's took his foot off the gas, though. He's not done it for a while.
I don't know. Nah,
Arwen's not chocolate, but if he wants to think he's chocolate,
he can think of Arwen as being chocolate.
It's never going to get old.
It's never going to get... I said that at the time. I was like, these quotes will never die. What baller. Being Musa. But then again, there's various other things that we've compared Musa with where they're like drastically worse. As in, is it Purcell? Where
Tony Purcell,
he's babbling on about not understanding. He's talking about being a physicist and then talking about not understanding physical reality.
Yeah, and he can't.
That's like, at least with Musa, right? Musa's got a kind of magic way with words. He's got a silver tongue and he spun that sentence beautifully. Now, it's horrific and comical, but at the same time, if you were listening to it live, I know our side were horrified. We're like, what? What the hell? But if you weren't on our side, if you're a Glober and you hear that, you could just get really caught up in the magic of how he's saying it. And wow, I can think
that's
of it.
That's exactly what Craig did. Craig didn't realise that he was disagreeing with him. He said it that beautifully. It was poetry.
Poetry's the right word. So it's quite... Musa, despite his hilarity with his... It's not a force, but think of it like one. It's not a chicken, but you can think of it as a chicken. Despite the hilarity, he's quite eloquent. The way he presented it, there's a lot in the subcontext of tone and timbre and delivery. Well, someone like Purcell, with his muttering, mumbling, stutterings about not understanding physical reality, when you compare that to Musa, and we're like, oh, Musa's dreadful, isn't it? Outrageous. No, then you listen to some other stuttering fuckwit PhD, and you're like, actually, Musa's not so bad, is he?
To be honest, the way Musa spoke was brilliant because it exposed Fight the Flat Earth as being stupid, because he failed to realise that Musa was disagreeing with him, but he was doing it that politely that he actually thought he was agreeing with him. So it's kind of like, like if you admit that you're sleeping with somebody else's wife when you shouldn't be, and you do it in a really polite, affable way, it almost seems as though it's okay. But that's what Musa did to Craig, and Craig didn't spot it and still thinks to this day that Musa agrees with him. And it's like, he doesn't, you fucking idiot.
He only had Musa there because we were pointing out that he didn't agree with him in the first instance. When he talks about snapping the wand in two, well, that's Musa.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
Superseded, right?
Yeah, superseded, not refined. It's not. They're not similes. He thinks that it means like refined, and it doesn't. Superseded means replaced.
Just give clarity because there's an audience. Oh, there will be. So we're talking about Newtonian versus Einsteinian gravity, and Musa is quoted as describing the Einsteinian pseudo-Riemannian force space as having snapped the wand in two. Now he's talking about Einsteinian forces. Now it goes on in the same quote to describe gravity not as a force. Now that's why Fight the Flat Earth had George Musa on his show, because we were quoting him left, right and centre. Here you go. Scientific American, the editor, George Musa, makes it clear. Gravity's not a force. It was superseded by the new hotness, as Chocolate puts it. The new hotness being Einsteinian pseudo-Riemannian force-space bending to give rise to a not actual force of gravity, which you can think of as a force. You can, globeheads. Because you're being told to.
The other thing that's really interesting, Nathan, for more context to this thing, did you listen to Quantum Eraser's first ever hangout with the Rumpus back in 2015, 16-ish?
Yeah, I've
Maybe
mirrored
17?
it. I mirrored it about 2 years ago. I didn't mention that when he was re-airing it. Obviously, I didn't want to, you know. But yeah, Betty sent it to me when I first met Betty. And she was like, have you heard this? And I'm like, no. She's like, I've listened to it 16 times. I'm like, really? It must be good. Send it to me. So she sent it to me. And about the fifth time I'd listened to it, I was like, I'm going to publish this. So I trimmed out all the periphery, top and tailed it, because there was a lot of sort of admin at the beginning, laying down rules, and a lot of chit-chat bullshit at the end between Paper and Rumpus.
This still declares victory.
They always do.
Yeah.
He declared victory.
Well,
I kicked him out for it the other day. So he came in, argued the toss about, what was it he was arguing about? I trimmed it out. I can't even remember now. Oh yeah, that was it. Weighing gas. And the question on the table, the reason he was there was because he was there to defend Thunderfoot in terms of his gas go down, go boom, boom like solid bonded bouncy balls. And his assertion was to say that, well, I can weigh gas on a scale with its downward vector of gravity. And I asked him if it required a container. His response to that was, it doesn't matter. That was his response. It doesn't matter. When we're asking if you require a container, and you're saying, no, gas has got a downward vector, when I stick it in a container and weigh it. Yeah, well, you need a container for that. So he lost. But his response was to tell me I didn't know how to debate, because I'd pummeled him.
Yeah,
I told him
he loses.
So when he told me that I didn't know how to debate, I told him to suck on my bollocks. That's what I told him to do.
My favorite part.
My point was that when Quantum Eraser was debating or discussing or whatever with the Rumpus, back in 2016, he cited George Musa, right? Now, here we are in 2020, and for me, I consider this to be quite a new development in the sense that there's the momentum behind it now, yet it's been cited by John since 2016, which from John's perspective, if you look at it from his perspective, it's like how slow it took us, our side, to get on this. Now, it's took me, I mean, I've been battered by Fight the Flat Earth on this for like a week's worth of Sleeping Warrior Week and all the ridicule that he could possibly throw my way. But now it's got a little bit of momentum behind it, and our side are getting it. But from John's perspective, you must look at this and think, why the fuck is Flat Earth taking so long to pick up on this? John? He's obviously not listening.
That's just how information
I'm sorry,
disseminates.
I was wearing my mask.
Go
I
on.
just got back from a full day of being a great person.
Wearing a
What does
mask.
that mean?
I get it. I saw the video.
Oh, yeah, I've seen the video, yeah.
The question you're being asked, QE, is why has it taken so long for people to pick up on the discussion points that you ably disseminated to Rumpus in your debate back in 2015?
Don't know. Maybe people have their own agendas. They want to hear themselves talk. I went off on a bunch of flat earthers last night for that very same thing.
It's weird. It's like it's been there that long, right? And we haven't picked up on it. Now, to be fair, I didn't know John at that time. I'd only heard that hangout recently in the last couple of weeks. But if it was being cited back then and we didn't pick up on it, we've only got ourselves to blame, really. We should have been picking up on that because it's there in black and white.
There was lots of things that QE did. So while he was broadcasting with Cathexis, and I didn't even know who he was, and Robert Bassano, I didn't know who either of them was, but they were producing flat Earth material, so I was watching. But I was also in the chat telling people that the Earth was flat. Now, but what I mean by that is, I wasn't necessarily, even though I was there watching, taking it all in, understanding it. So when you come back to the information being put to me by QE in my comment section, I'm like, I know this guy. And when QE started to disseminate the information to me personally, it still took 10 attempts for each piece of information to actually sink in, right? So I'm like, you don't mind telling me this again, do you? And QE was very tolerant with me. Well, that kind of, the level of patience that QE had with me to disseminate that information to me took a considerable amount of time. Now I've disseminated it to others, as have you. That takes time, right?
Yeah. It's like we all have our little journey, and it takes different amount of times for different points to go through. I remember times when I thought Ranty understood certain points, and then like he'll have the eureka moment like months afterwards, and he'll realise that such and such a point now makes sense to him, and I'll be like, Jesus, I thought you understood that, and for all the time that we were talking, he didn't get it, but then something happened, and he then get it, and you're right, we all have that moment where we just go shit. But it just took us a long time to be able to get around this gravity point, it seems.
Let me read one part of that interview with Musser. It says, okay, this is George speaking. Fell on Einstein to explain it, how objects, massive objects, exert what seems to be a force on one another. Literally, it's not a force. So the thing about Newton's laws, you can't take it literally, but Newton himself didn't.
Yeah.
I popped your meme up. I'm not saying gravity is a force, ... But you can think of it as a force.
Yep.
But it's worse. The actual quote is worse than that. Gravity is not a force, but you can think of it as a force, is the actual quote. So he explicitly states that it's not a force in the precursor.
But the real poetry is that Craig,
so that's the answer.
Poetry is that, just one sec. The real poetry is that Craig still doesn't realise that he was disagreeing with him, even today.
What are you saying?
What
Craig's
were you
thick?
saying, Neil?
You're saying Craig's stupid?
Yeah.
Neil, what were you saying?
That's the answer for me. I have a Mercedes that's draining, but I'm going to think of it as a Toyota.
Comes to something when somebody with a Mercedes is saying, I want to think of it as being like a Toyota. That says a lot about Mercedes-Benz these days, doesn't it?
I should have stressed older Mercedes.
But it's not an older Mercedes. When I was in college, one of the guys I went to college with and worked with later in a hi-fi shop, his dad had a Mercedes, and it was an 80s Mercedes. And the doors were an inch thick steel. The thing was a tank. And it always started. It was extremely reliable. It was totally over-engineered in every single respect I can think of it. Everything was over-engineered on it. And then sort of, I don't know, mid to late 90s, Merck just went, yeah, we're not going to over-engineer our stuff anymore. We're just going to make it cheap. And they did. And from that day to this, everything Merck was cheap. It wasn't over-engineered anymore. So it didn't last very long anymore. And that's just how it is now. All cars are like that. Not saying all cars started out life like Merck's, where they were over-engineered at one stage. That's not necessarily the case. But certainly with Mercedes-Benz, when I was growing up, if you had a Merc, it was synonymous with being extremely well-engineered. Now it isn't.
Audi used to be the same. If you bought an Audi in the mid-90s, they were built to last. They were galvanized bodies. They were fast, reliable. not too expensive on parts, didn't have to plug them in all the time. Now, you can't get an Audi. Anything that, it's like most things that are like middle of the range, top of the range stuff. You get a dashboard light on, instantly it's going to cost you £100.
Yep. My wife's Audi needs servicing. I'm like, you're going to get the oil changed on that Audi? She's like, no! I've got no money. I'm totally broke. I'll just put a little sticky tape over that light and that'll be it for a month.
You can change the oil yourself though, right?
Me? I'm not mechanically inclined, no.
It's only one 17 mil nut.
Hold on real quick, Anthony. Before Nathan starts the show, we're saying we think of it as a force, but they're saying you have to treat it as a force. So we kind of need to change it up a little bit. So your Mercedes is not a truck, but you treat it as a truck. Of course, Jesse decides to get her cooking.
Yeah, it always happens with you for some reason, Paul. Just as you want to start talking, fireworks go off in the back. Speaking of fireworks, have you seen that one going off in Beirut? It's not a fucking firework, that is it?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, man. A firework factory caught fire in Beirut, Lebanon. And basically, it was the biggest explosion you've ever seen in your life. Apparently, somebody just happened to leave a shitload of explosives in the factory where the fireworks were that then caught fire and blew up. It's just decimated an area of about a mile around it because it blew up like a nuclear bomb.
Says who?
Well, watch the footage on TV.
TV
It's
says
been going
so.
around for a couple of days.
Yeah, I don't watch TV.
It's on the telly.
No, on YouTube. It's on YouTube.
Don't believe a word of it.
Well, you can think of it as a firework then.
Yeah, it's not a firework factory, but you can think of it as it's like 9/11. It's not like I have morons that actually argue that 9/11 was the way it went down, and I'm like, what's happening is over time the strong arguments against it are being diluted because time's getting in the way, causing people to lose track of it. And now the kids that are coming out now, they've got absolutely no idea what went on with 9/11. They completely buy into the official story, and it's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
What's the saying? What's the 1984 saying? He who controls the past controls the future. He who controls the future controls the present. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right. So whoever's writing the story, the person who makes the narrative, is the person who can control the event itself. Right?
Yeah. That's
Hey,
what's
Nathan. Nathan, before you start the show, how many times do you think you've gone over the second law of thermodynamics and entropy? Just a guesstimate.
I have no idea. Why'd you ask?
Every show. Every show,
Pretty
right?
much we bring it up at least every show, yeah, by way of the question in the housekeeping. But yeah, what's your point though?
So my point is, I remarked to a guy on Mitchell's video that he did about violation of the second law of thermodynamics, outer space, and all that. And the ballers still, to this day, say, okay, explain second law of thermodynamics to me. Go. It's like, wait a minute, you've heard it every day. You want me to explain it again to you? Forget it.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Now we are joined by 10th Man, Quantum Eraser, Sleeping Warrior, Paul Hall, and I think that's it in G+, together with a whole bunch of people in Discord. Welcome, one and all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Wow, Discord popped up. Awesome.
Morning, Chocolate.
Good morning, guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you loud and clear. And morning to everyone who I've just managed to hustle off mute in Discord. Any signs of physical Earth curve edges, formerly known as a geometric horizon?
Not from where I'm standing.
Only in the math, not physical anything.
Any more? Any more for any more? Earth curve. Main point of this discussion.
I think they lost their Earth curve.
Go on, Ed. Clearly not. Go on, Chris.
The parent horizon.
Apparent. Not their geometric horizon. It's not apparent. Can't see it. Any signs of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No, both sides agree. They don't feel the Earth motion whatsoever.
And one side is supposed to have this effect that we're supposed to see to prove it, but doesn't. So it'll tell us how we don't see that effect. That's supposed to prove that we're spinning? Yeah. We don't have that.
Yeah, we're supposed to have 15 degrees an hour of the Earth rotating underneath the inertial reference frame, which would be the reference frame you are in should you leave a claim to be spinning Earth. Now, by leave, I mean anything that you are observing from the ground as it is claimed to spin would appear to deviate from its straight trajectory. That would be Coriolis effect. This is asserted by people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, who asserts that a ball is kicked from a football field and goes through the goal because the Earth rotated underneath at 15 degrees an hour. That would be an effect of Coriolis, claimed to prove Earth is spinning underneath at 15 degrees an hour. However, if Earth is spinning underneath an inertial reference frame at 15 degrees an hour, then flights travelling west would have their flight times reduced, because as they travel towards their target destination, the Earth would be rotating underneath them. Obviously, this does not happen, because Earth is not rotating underneath, as claimed to do at 15 degrees an hour, or we would see the effect of Coriolis effect. The fact that it's asserted by priests like Neil deGrasse Tyson in things that have a half a second hang time, same goes for snipers, it's just their way of convoluting the fact that we don't actually see this effect. That would be the effect of a hovering helicopter or drone or hot air balloon having Earth rotate underneath it at 15 degrees an hour. We do not observe this. Earth is not rotating. There is no claimed demonstrable proof of Earth's rotation underneath an inertial reference frame at 15 degrees an hour because Earth is not rotating. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Well, wait a minute before you move away from that nation,
Sure.
Nathan. Is there any evidence that hurricane winds are standing still or moving in a straight line?
Why do you ask? Because that's not Coriolis effect.
Well, right, exactly, because but they're saying the Coriolis effect is what causes hurricanes, so you have to have them either moving in a straight line or standing still to have Coriolis, right?
Coriolis effect would be you observing something travelling straight seeming to curve because you're rotating underneath it. That effect is nothing to do with wind. You don't observe curved trajectories of wind that are actually straight because you're rotating underneath them. Hurricanes, in your example, have an actual spin direction. It's not an apparent deviation because you're rotating underneath them. That's preposterous. Hey, Travis. Hey, Arwin.
Hey.
Hello. What
Hello.
up?
Hello. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Scientific evidence of what?
Gravity. The reification fallacy. The reification fallacy that is gravity.
force that's not a force? Law of non-contradiction.
Or shall I get my little Musa meme? There we go. Check it out. I'm not saying gravity is a force, but you can think of it as a force. I said to Anthony after he presented this, the actual quote is worse, because he explicitly states gravity is not a force, but you can think of it as a force. That was the actual quote. To play on the aliens thing, though, do you want to explain it, Anthony? Sleeping Warrior. Sleeping Warrior. Come in, Sleeping Warrior.
Wake up!
Any single viable hypothesis from... Oh, go ahead, Sleeping Warrior. Perfect timing.
Sorry, I was making a coffee. What was the question?
The context for why you've changed the explicit statement that gravity is not a force to, I'm not saying gravity is a force, ...
Oh, because of the Ancient Alien guy? Because it's comparable to the guy from Ancient Aliens saying that, I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens. That's essentially what the ballers are being compared to, because that is the same thing. He's not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens. Yeah, Musa said, it's not really a force, but you can think of it as a force. It's directly comparable. You are as dumb as the guy from Ancient Aliens.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
No.
Cleary sends us.
We need to add to that. You know that list of astronomy, whatever. What is the list? Astrology, astronomy. What was the list?
Astrophysics,
cosmology.
Yeah, we need to add. We need to add. What's that job that PhD Tony calls himself? Does he call himself a biological physicist? Is that what he calls himself, or something like that? We need to add his job title to it because he's a scientist.
He's a geophysicist. So we already got geology in there. The extended list is paleontology, archaeology, anthropology, geology, evolutionary biology, whatever that is. And yes, I'm still laughing my ass off. Theoretical physics. We only limited it.
So let's just be clear.
A geophysicist is basically
Jesus Christ,
right?
Let's just be clear, though.
We got the list. Thank you, though, QE. You're getting rumpus, but thank you for the list, QE.
Yeah,
can't. What possesses people, right, to just jump in? What fucking possesses you to do that?
I don't know. I can't figure it out.
You would never do that, right, Huey?
I can't get it, Arwen. What the fuck?
Oh, come on, no swearing. Shout out to Cleary. He says, 10th man, you do understand.
Hey, Cleary.
Every time I start talking, I'll just say, hey, Arwen, just shut the fuck up, okay? And then when I'm done, I'll say, go ahead.
No swearing, please.
My
live
word.
show. Hello, live show.
John, you've had your mask on too long. You seem to be suffering the effects of a...
Don't poke him. My God, Sleeping Warrior could kill you. Try and calm him down.
Don't poke me.
Nathan, I think it's a good time to say what you were going to say about Arwen on the last few shows.
I'm in the middle of housekeeping. What's going on? Suddenly it's time. And now...
This is not Arwen shaming hour, so shut the fuck up.
It wasn't. It was a compliment.
He wasn't going to do that, Arwen.
Oh, God. Things are descending fast.
Compliment. I'm going to take it as an insult.
This escalated quickly.
No, what I said,
Literally, it's
Arwen,
freaking hot out
what
here,
I said, Arwen, was Nathan, prior to you coming in the pre-show, was raving at your last few shows how concise your sentences and arguments were. So I was just reminding him after John berated you to uplift you. And then
we interrupt this housekeeping session for an Arwen ass-kissing session. Can we get on with housekeeping?
I didn't ask for this, okay? I thought I was getting attacked.
You weren't. You were actually getting a very serious compliment. But I don't care right now in the middle of housekeeping. This is never going to end.
Just move on.
Proper handbags today. What the hell?
Let's just finish up after housekeeping.
Okay, ladies. Can we all settle down? Right. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Just P waves and S waves, and they're not possible on any other shape Earth, apparently.
I still don't know what that means.
Good, just keep it that way. That's the best way.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably more concise that you don't know, because once you start talking and drawing diagrams and all that, it's very persuasive. It convinced me, a diagram that tells me everything.
The bottom line is it's not accurate. So when they used it with the Kola deep borehole out in Russia, they used that method and got it wrong. So what you want me to understand and accept that when they're digging an 8-mile hole, they can get it wrong, drastically wrong. But what they know based on the exact same method, what's at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth with a radius of 3959 miles? No. That's just nonsense.
Yep.
Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Yeah, just go outside, Nathan, and breathe.
That would be evidence of containment. Without the container, there would be no gas pressure. So that's quite the contrary.
Where is the container then, Nathan?
Pardon?
Where is it, and why has no one ever seen it?
Don't know, but I know it's an antecedent-consequent relationship to have gas pressure.
Yeah, so is gravity. Gravity holds it on, Nathan.
No, it doesn't.
No, gravity's not a force.
No.
It's not
You
holding
know
anything
better
to
than
anything.
that, Tony. You know that even if you would assume that gravity was a force, it still would not be able to hold the gas pressure, on the Earth in the face of the entire outer space universe.
That's
I'm just illustrating how absurd the argument is. That's all.
Hold on, that's a good point, Arwin. Because 8 to 10 months ago, let's throw Sleeping Warrior under the bus a little bit. So he was a little bit less advanced with this argument, and QE was, I'll throw it on him rather than me, was asserting that you can have your Newtonian and your Einsteinian gravity at 100%, 200% force. It's still not going to overcome entropy. And your criticism back then was to say, why are you allowing them this when I'm debating with them about the reification fallacy that is gravity when I let them beg the question? So now, today, do you understand the concept of saying, regardless of what your not actual force is or is not, it's still not overcoming entropy?
Yeah. I just don't like giving them gravity just for the sake of conversation, even though I encourage begging the question. I just don't like giving them gravity because it's my pet hate. You can't have gravity.
Right. Yeah, but at the time, right, I just hate begging the question. Right.
I know.
So
I know, and I agree. Because I know that you don't like begging the question, and I tend to like begging the question. But I'm not going to beg the question with gravity. You can't have gravity.
Yeah, that's kind of my point. It's good for you, right? It's good for the goose,
I know,
but not good for the gander.
I know.
But that's not fair on the ballers because they can't have one question begged without the other. So
I know, you're right. It's being hypocritical, Arwin, and I completely agree.
Yeah,
Arwin just likes Arwin. Sleeping Warrior just likes the fight.
Yeah, but the P and the modus
right.
tollens, we are allowing the begging the question in a proper logical way.
Yeah,
And they
yeah.
still
We'll
don't
beg the question when we dismantle it with logic. Yeah, no worries.
I think I get this. So it basically comes down to Tony just likes to really start the attack once gravity gets topped on the table. Basically, that's the moment he likes to strike. Right?
Yeah. The minute someone says the G word, right, that's when I wake up.
Right.
Do you know, I've got to give Spurs a shout out. He was on Red's Rhetoric last night. Now, I've not watched it, but he was on also Fight the Flat Earth a night or two before, and I've watched most of that. Spurs is on fire at the minute, Nathan. Have you watched?
Yeah, I keep up with Spurs. Spurs is ace. He is on fire.
He's doing really well.
There's a load of people at the moment. It's really encouraging, the amount of people. Mitch, Spurs, Arwin got a compliment before he got here. We won't get too into detail because his head will explode.
Well,
but yeah,
what's even better?
People are on fire.
Yeah. What's even better is Spurs rang me last night and he says to me, right, I've got a problem. I says, what's that? He says, when they talk about what was it now? He was talking about open systems and open and closed systems. He said, second law of thermodynamics only applies to an isolated system. And I says, yeah. He said, well, how do I get around that?
What do you mean,
open system?
Oh God! What do you mean? You said yeah?
It's the opening line, isn't it? In the definition that they cite, it applies to an isolated system. And Spurs has never come across this before. And I said, okay. I said, well, because his question is, well, what does it do in an open system? And I said, well, what do you think it does any different? And he said, well, they say it only applies to an isolated system. And I said, okay, well, what does it do any different in an open system? He said, yeah, but why does it say isolated system? I said, because if it said open system, it would imply that isolated systems aren't covered. So it says isolated systems so that they are covered.
That's wrong.
Said, but the reality is, it's the same in both.
That's wrong. That's incorrect. So there are no isolated systems in the same way as there are no ideal gases. But you have ideal gas law described with ideal gases. Well, why? Well, it's to simplify it so it can be described in more broad terms, in a more understandable way. The same applies to the second law of thermodynamics. You're describing it with an isolated system. Well, what are you describing? Well, the second law of thermodynamics is a natural law. It's describing what happens in nature. It's just a description. But to simplify the description of what happens in nature, they use an isolated system. Now, if you look into what it actually describes in the second law of thermodynamics, or if you bore yourself as I have done with hours and hours of endless MIT lectures on the second law of thermodynamics, they rigorously define what and how it applies to each of the systems when it's applicable. So open and closed systems exist in nature. Isolated systems, while they do not exist in nature, doesn't mean that the description of an isolated system to simplify how this law of nature applies by way of verbalization doesn't suddenly mean that because the verbalization of the natural law applicable always in nature utilizes something that simply doesn't exist, that means that the natural law doesn't apply to an Earth that's in a sky vacuum, which is essentially what they're saying. The natural law is described with an isolated system, and no such system exists, therefore the natural law doesn't apply. It's absolutely absurd.
Well, that was a conversation killer.
As I say, the same applies to ideal gas law, describing how gases behave. Well, are all gases the same? No. Are they all equal? No, of course not. But you need to be able to describe these things in general terms as it generally applies to gases. Yeah? That's ideal gas law. Well, show me an ideal gas. Oh, there aren't any. Oh, so this doesn't apply to gas then? No! You're just a moron. Not you. The person who said that to you.
They need it to be that, correct?
They need it not to apply to their Earth. So this natural law, applicable in nature always, inviolable, that's the second law of thermodynamics in this case, is described, well, descriptions aren't causing things. Descriptions aren't events. They're not the event itself, it's just the description. The description involves a dumbed down, if you will, system, an isolated system. Well, there aren't any. There aren't any isolated systems like there aren't any ideal gases. Does that mean it doesn't apply to gas? No. Does it mean it doesn't apply to the Earth? No. Absolutely applies. It's a natural law. Their Earth is an open system.
Sorry, Nathan, I posted a picture that might help in your semester.
Okie doke. Or is it in Ballbusters?
Masterby.
It's not come through.
I'll go refresh. Yeah, it's through here.
Oh, it's not come through to me. Well, hopefully it'll come through in the next couple of minutes while I cover the last housekeeping question.
Okay.
Any evidence of the R value? Earth radius.
Definitely not.
Black Swan.
Do you have something you wanted to present, Arwin?
Oh, no, I was just looking into isolated systems to refresh my memory. It used to confuse me a lot when that was first brought up. But an isolated system could be like a terrarium, right?
No, there are no isolated systems.
A terrarium is usually, bro, a terrarium is usually made of glass, right?
Right, but that isolates it, and only light can get in.
Yeah,
that's energy.
Yeah,
so
that be
therefore,
energy?
Therefore closed. So open system is open to matter and energy. Closed system, no matter will escape, but energy can transfer. Isolated system, neither matter nor energy will transfer. No such system exists.
Oh, right. Okay, so that is a closed system then.
Yeah, it's a closed system. Correct.
Like a terrarium.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Then I switched them around in my head. I don't know why.
You can think of it as an isolated system. Nudge, nudge.
He needs to be more specific. If it's a terrarium, does it have a lid on it, or is it open at the top?
I just assumed he was talking about the liquid in the terrarium anyway. So yeah, you're right, Paul. That would need to be defined if you were saying whether or not it was open to the the state change. So gases are going to expand out of that chamber, is what you're saying, right, Paul?
Right, because then it would be even with water in it, if the terrarium's if there's no lid on it, it's an open system. It's not a closed system.
Yeah. Okay. Granted.
Nathan, there's a second picture I sent you too.
Well, what if I would suggest that the realm might actually be an isolated system? If all the energy is inside of it, the lights and all that, the daylight even, if it's all inside of the system, and there is a barrier because there's gas pressure, and there's no indication that there's anything beyond the barrier that you can even get there, then maybe it is an isolated system after all, this realm. But yeah, we don't have all the data.
Yep, that's special pleading.
Well, even either system, whether the universe as the Globers say it, or even a closed system within the flat Earth realm, or a so-called enclosed realm, is still either way. You don't know. It could be both systems could be open or it could be a closed system, but the energy's still coming in. But of course, I guess that would violate the second law of the first law of thermodynamics. If energy can't, well, no. Oh no, I have to think about that one.
You don't. What you're saying is it could be isolated. This description of a conceptual system used to describe a natural law. We've invented this concept of an isolated system, though, to give a description that only applies to open and closed system. So it's back to reifying things outside of their convention. So the convention of an isolated system is really only used in this context to describe something that does exist in nature. So to therefore say, well, let's work outside of this convention and say, well, maybe we're in an isolated system. Well, maybe. Okay. Well, maybe we're inside a giant chicken. That's a possibility, but I don't think it's true. But we definitely know we're in a closed system. And the reason we know is because we have gas pressure. But beyond that, no offense to you, Paul, I don't care. Is it isolated? Well, that's a convention that we've invented.
Right.
Oh, yeah. And then my only point was that we don't really know if this realm, as Erwin would call it, in either direction you go, either heliocentrism or the flat Earth, is a true isolated system. We don't really know for sure.
Well, we know it's closed,
we don't
though.
have all the data.
We don't know. Okay, so if for the sake of argument, let's make a few assumptions. Let's assume the sun is a physical thing and it's generating energy. But we don't know if that is coming in from outside and exists outside our realm, as you describe it, or inside. So we have no idea. So what you're saying is, well, if it's outside, well, that would imply obviously we're in a closed system, and that applies to all the same rules and laws that we experience anyway. However, what happens if the sun's inside our realm and there's nothing at all coming in from the outside? Well, that would make it isolated. That would make it just like the convention we use to describe closed and open systems in terms of how entropy applies. Well, yeah, maybe. But are you going to find that out? I would say no.
Well, not anytime soon anyway, Let's first find the barrier.
Let's first accept that we're in a closed system because we've got gas pressure.
Right, yeah, we still have to get past the globe religion part first, of course.
Yeah, we've got to get past numpties that don't accept that the lectures that go on daily in universities across the plane about this law of nature, they don't accept it because it utilises a convention of an isolated system to simplify the law. Based on that, they reject natural law. I've heard it said many times. Oh, well, if you read the first line of what Wiki says about the second law, it describes isolated systems, and we're not isolated. Well, okay, what are we then? In your system, it's open! Open to a vacuum! Now, all the rest of the stuff that it is describing, they ignore entirely. Because what? We're not closed to both the transfer of the air that we're breathing to space and the energy from their presumption that we've got a sun out here in space. So because it's not this one, it's actually this one, where both matter, that would be air, and heat can both leave the system of Earth, because it's open. They say, oh, well, because it's not completely sealed to everything, it's actually open to everything. That means the natural law that describes how gas would expand, occupy all available microstates, that law doesn't apply anymore. Even though it's taught to university students all over the plane. That doesn't apply because it's not isolated. Earth, that is. My version of Earth is just completely open to a sky vacuum at 10 to the minus 17 torr. Therefore, all of this black area here is an available volume for all the gas that resides on the top surface of this ball to not fill, because it's not completely sealed off, isolated as described in the law. So according to them, unless it's isolated, that law doesn't apply, even though there aren't any isolated systems to apply it to, and therefore why the hell would it be taught to anybody ever if it's only applicable to a system that doesn't exist? It's absolutely absurd. They're just thick. Globeheads, you're thick. If you think this natural law doesn't apply because it's described with isolated systems, that makes you moronic.
I just thought of something though, Nathan. Even in their heliocentric model, if the universe is expanding, the universe is trying to fill all available microstates if it's expanding. Think about that for a second.
Yeah, I've got to reify the lights in the sky into an ever-expanding soup of nothingness in the case of what they describe the universe as. I just see the sky now. I find it very difficult to conceptualize heliocentric bullshit now. When I look up at the sky, I don't picture vast expanding universe into another expanding nothingness that doesn't exist yet by way of it trying to, convolute itself into a description with entropy. I can't even fathom that, Paul, if I'm honest.
No, I get you. None of it makes sense, but if you think about it logically, though, that's what they have to be saying. The universe is expanding to try to fill all available microstates. The universe itself is. It's expanding, keeps moving, keeps growing.
Right, so the universe, the 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum that is outer space, that's what the globeheads think that they've got when they crick their head up to the sky. That is supposed to be expanding, and you can kind of parallel that with the occupation of all available microstates as described in the second law of thermodynamics. And yet the gas we breathe here on Earth, where natural law absolutely is applicable, that's not expanding into the expanding universe that's expanding into something that doesn't exist yet in their rhetoric. That's what your sky is if you're a fundy globehead. That's how your sky is to you, with Star Wars going on in it, right? It's just absurd to me now. That concludes the housekeeping. Not bad little session. Half an hour on housekeeping. I like it when it's about that length. Half the show on housekeeping. Excellent. Thank you for all the memes and stuff. Not memes, diagrams, 10th man. I did have it up, by the way, Paul.
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah, I got it up for 10th man.
Well, I'm glad I wasn't the only one doing it because I feel isolated.
Boom, boom.
No
now
puns.
You're just closed-minded, Ned.
Me, no puns. It's not your show. Travis has got a show now, by the way.
This is an open forum, Travis.
Travis has got his own show, so check him out. The Plain Truth is the name of his channel. Does a lot of broadcasting, debates with people. Also goes out, takes his own observations. So be here or be sphere for The Plain Truth. That's Travis's channel. Say hello, Travis. Epic.
Yeah, I could count on Travis to be my personal pun troll.
Pun troll?
Yeah, pun troll. Because I have no control for my pun troll. Travis keeps me in check.
What?
Never mind, Arwen.
Ah. So you are there.
I'm always here.
So, Nathan, it's time to say what you were going to say about Arwen in the last few shows.
Okay, you've been desperate for me to compliment Arwen for some reason. We were just saying that you've been on fire, on point, very concise with your interjections, Arwin. As in, prior to this compliment, we would describe you as interjecting with a sarcastic baller retort, just to get a laugh. Whereas of recent days, you've been more cutting and concise in terms of your actual concise flat Earth rebuttal, if you want to call it that. That was the long and short of what we were talking about. When there was an argument, you were like, "Don't insult me! I'm not here for that." That was what actually we were describing about you, how well you were doing. But there we go.
All right. Well, that was actually in response to what John. But yeah, thanks. Yeah, I want to modestly agree in the sense that I have really tried to do my best to just push it, crunch it, get it better, do more, advance in my insight and in my oratory abilities. So yeah, I'm glad that it has borne noticeable fruits.
Well, you were compared to
Very
chocolate,
glad.
which is high praise.
Sorry, what?
I said you were
catch that.
compared to chocolate, saying that's high praise.
Compared to a chocolate saying?
Typically, chocolate will interject with like a concise summary in about 5 words, or a demolition of someone's argument in about 3 words. Well, that's the similar sort of thing. You were compared to that, and I'm saying it's high praise. Can we end this?
Right. Yes.
Enough Arwin asking.
Is this your doing, 10th man?
No,
Am I
we
doing?
just raised you.
Was this
No.
because I
level of a
apologized to you?
No,
after
I
I
brought
said
it
this?
up. No, it's me.
No,
My
you
doing,
brought
Arwin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I'm saying
How
once
paranoid are
you,
you today, Arwin?
What?
once you were, oh my gosh,
Sorry, am I interrupting?
no, nothing. That's not normal. I mean, it's
I think Google's screwing up or something.
oh,
It's been- Yeah, no, seriously, I think I can't hear sometimes.
Okay,
people.
well, while you figure it out, I'm going to shout out Rob Wiggles. So shout out to Rob Wiggles for the super chat. He says, "Super chat smashed." Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Yeah, it's dropping and rejoining. I think he's having issues with G Plus actually.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, much clearer.
Yes, cool. Yeah, sorry, it's weird, man. The sound. Sometimes other people's sound just seems to drop away unexpectedly, and sometimes I think I'm not heard. I don't know what it is.
Back onto the subject of how quickly the information that was disseminated in 2015 in terms of the debate between the Rumpus and Quantum Eraser. Now that level of information, I think it's taken about 5 years, but it has crept up on more people in the community. So as we've given Arwin and Chocolate and everyone else on the panel a lot of compliments, let's pick someone else, which is Mitchell from Australia. So when I listen to his videos, I just smile from ear to ear because everything he says is just spot on. You know, he's demolishing the argument. When he is getting into what seems like a bait style argument with these star rotations, it seems like bait to just beg the question. He's there with a precursor to it saying things like, well, notwithstanding the fact that space is fake, and here's why, you couldn't have these star rotations. You're like, perfect. So to hear people like Mitchell, he's not part of the panel, right? He's not on the show. I don't think he's ever even been on. Saying things like that, it just makes me smile. And back in the day,
Conspiracy's comment under his video.
Didn't know. Go on.
So obviously he's doing the rounds at the minute because he's getting high praise for pointing out the comparison with the stars point, right? So Ben had put a message underneath saying, "Well done," or good video, or something along them lines. And I put underneath, "We've taught him well." Ben, smile.
That's worthy of another shout out. So Taboo Conspiracy 2 is Ben, who we're referring to now. And just another, Ben has always been on fire though. That's not like he's suddenly gone up some steep learning curve. Ben's always been like that. He's always been right on the cutting edge. More so than me. Shout out to Taboo Conspiracy. Subscribe today. Same goes for Mitchell from Australia. So subscribe today. And Spurs, under no pressure. He got a shout out, didn't he? Why not? Spurs,
Yeah.
Schemo, under no pressure. He's on fire. Arwin, Flat Earth Early Bird, goes out before this show. He's on fire. Travis, you've got lots of shout outs today. Lots of people to subscribe to if you're a newbie. Got a big panel today for some reason. Lots of YouTubers. How you doing, Paul? How you doing, Chocolate?
Forget 10th man. 10th man dishes.
Yeah, definitely YouTuber,
Food for
10th
thought.
man.
Food for thought.
Yeah, he's not getting a plug. It's not flat Earth related.
I make flapjacks. Come on, man.
You say you do. I think it's all CGI. It's your wife doing it all.
That's it. It's an isolated cooking show.
Oh shit! Arwen got to Nathan.
Not a very enthusiastic Thursday afternoon, guys.
No,
Especially
it's
from-
so hot. First, okay, let's get it going. Anybody in Discord want to talk about the Black Swan? Let's start there. Who do we got in Discord?
Yeah, I think the people in on the Ball Earth side, I was listening to Sean Hawkins, for example, arguing against the Black Swan, and he said that it was debunked. It's been debunked so many times. And it's like, oh, really? How has it been debunked? Because I said to him, like in messages, I said, can you explain to me what we say the Black Swan does? It proves. And he couldn't recite back what the claim is, but he was happy to tell people it's been debunked so many times. Sean Hawkins doesn't even know what the Black Swan argument actually is, yet he tells people it's been debunked. What a fool.
I think that's a more recent trends among ballers too, because remember Ed didn't know which way the ball Earth was spinning, so they're all turning into our zombies, basically, becoming dumber.
Well, so let's have the ballers maybe explain how gravity can be a force and not a force at the same time.
There's only Ed here. There's no other ballers as far as I can see.
Well, that's a sign that it hasn't been debunked, and they just left, and they think they've debunked it.
Yeah, let's just remind the audience that nobody's been able to debunk the Black Swan. It's not something that they can debunk. It's just something they've got to accept, and they don't like it. But that doesn't mean it's been debunked.
Their rebuttal to it implodes their own model. They tell us that we cannot see the geometric horizon, in spite of the fact that to derive an R value, Al-Biruni has claimed to have measured that which they say we cannot see. That would be Earth curve, a geometric horizon, a sphere edge that blocks boats and buildings. We're told, based on the Black Swan being presented, we do not see a geometric horizon. That's Earth curve. We wouldn't expect to see Earth geometry. That's Earth curve. The geometric horizon only exists in Earth curve maths. That's Earth curve only exists in Earth curve maths. That's the rebuttal.
Or who cares?
I left the best to last. Sorry, Neil. The best one is the following. The P statement in modus tollens is a straw man. Now, that's the best one. It takes a little bit of explaining. The P statement in modus tollens is if the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, then every distance to horizon measurement can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. That was actually if P then Q, but I might as well give it the full rendition. But the if P statement is if the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles. And they say that statement is a straw man. Now, that statement is the assertion that Earth's a sphere. And they tell us that that statement, when we say, oh, we're happy to beg the question when we use modus tollens, because we're debunking your presumption of R in the logical consistency. But the P statement that the logical consistency is based on, i.e. when we say we are begging the question on their behalf, is the begging the question fallacy that is to assume a sphere Earth. And they tell us that that assumption in the P statement is a logical fallacy because it's a straw man. Why is it a straw man? Well, because you can't see Earth curve. It's a straw man to tell me that you can. That's what they tell us. That's one of their rebuttals, the best rebuttal. P is a straw man. What, if Earth's a sphere with radius 3959? Yeah, we agree. That's definitely a straw man. Only exists in the maths, only exists in the model. What's that? That's also your rebuttal too. Welcome to Flat Earth.
They just don't like it, Nathan. That's the problem.
At best, what you've done here is disprove the radius.
Oh, yeah, but I didn't say that.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, you did. There it is. Black and white. You said it, mate.
That's worth going over.
You did. You did.
So that was Mitchell from Australia. So Mitchell from Australia is in debate with a guy called Mr. Sensible. And Mr. Sensible hears the rendition in full of the Black Swan argument. And his reply was, at best, you would have debunked the radius of Earth. That was his response. Recorded and played back on snipped out clip by me and Anthony and several other people. Now, his response to that was to make a series, not just one, but a series of videos saying, I did not say that. And challenging Anthony to prove that he said that. And all Anthony did was just play back the recording of him saying it, while he simultaneously denied saying it on multiple occasions. Now, Phil Bell, he's also done that. Flat out denied laughing along to the assertion that water vapor's not gas. And we just play it out. Play out the recording of him laughing along and saying it's the dumbest thing he's ever heard. Humiliating, embarrassing. But that's what happens if you've got a religious belief in absurd things like a sphere Earth. You'll make the most ludicrous declarations to an audience of people who can just play it back to you. So, Mr. Sensible, at best you would have debunked the radius of Earth. That's precisely what we've done. Utilised your begging the question fallacy that Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles and demonstrated that it cannot be so, debunking Earth's radius. What's that? You say you didn't say that? Let's play it back for you. Yeah, we did debunk our...
I don't understand. How does he even still have subscribers? Like, somebody like that will say something like that. Somebody like me will come in the next day and say it like 5 times, just making fun of him. And he will just say like, oh, I didn't say that.
It's like
He'll do it.
When he did that video, gas pressure without a container, and he used a big bloody pipe. And then he tries to argue, that's not a container for gas pressure. Yeah, it is the container that gave you the pressure, yet none of the ballers call him out on it.
Yeah, and he'll continually assert it, that his demonstration's correct, it's still up published. Same goes for Thunderfoot, who's just doubled down on gas balls, go down, go boom boom, go splash splash. That's what they do. They double down on their nonsense. Because if they assert it again and call us stupid, then that means they're right. So, flat earthers didn't understand me bonding gas, pouring it through some other gas when it's actually solid. They didn't understand that. So here it is again. That's what they do. Totally
and it's just,
part of their type. That's reverting to type.
It's the same with the rumpus. Because he knows that gravity is not a force, he now says that all forces are effects. And it's like, rumpus, you can't have an effect without a force. You need one to get the other. And he says, yeah, but all forces are effects. And they're not. Because if I punch somebody in the eye, then you get pain. So the force is the punch and the effect is the pain, right? Black eye comes later. But you can't have the force and the pain at the same. They're not the same. They're mutually exclusive. But Rumpus tells people that all forces are effects because he needs gravity to be a force for his model to work. Well, gravity's not a force, Rumpus, and it's not an effect. They're not the same. Mutually exclusive.
You want to read out your meme? I've got it up, Arwin. On mute.
It might be a good how Social Lily decides. Hold on a second. We might actually have the discussion of what's a cause and what's an effect, and the difference between the two.
Are you serious?
Well, I mean, if he's saying it's an effect, not a cause, it's just an effective thing. So that's what the ballers are saying. Of course, Lily's saying it.
Well, to be fair, it's not the ballers. It's only the Rumpus at the minute. But if it catches on and they all start saying it, then we might have to address it. But for the minute, we can just isolate the Rumpus and laugh at Rumpus only, because everybody knows that a force is not the same as an effect. One's cause, one's an effect. They're mutually exclusive. A necessary antecedent of an effect is a cause, isn't it? You need something to cause it, otherwise it's never going to happen. So how does anything accelerate Newton's apple if it's not a force? It can't, can it?
I like how you say we might have to address this, and then you address it by basically saying the same thing in about 4 different ways, which is the only thing you can do. I'm not knocking that. But when somebody doesn't understand something as simple as cause and effect, it's like the one is not the same as the other. What can you do other than paraphrase it in 5 different ways, as you've just done?
Just remember, we're dealing with people who think straight is curved.
You got to read Retro Bill's super chat, Nathan.
At best, you have disproved gravity, space, Earth's radius, rotation, and curvature. But Riley's school notebook drawings prove the molten iron core. Oh, thanks for the super chat, Retro Bill.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Nice one. Hey, Nathan, I got a star trail I did last night. So Master B.
Master B. It's not come through yet.
Oh, cheapers.
Oh, here it is. Yeah, it's just come through. It has come through.
Now, did you take this from the International Space Station orbiting the Earth, or was it taken from your back garden?
I took it from the international backyard.
Because they look very similar, don't they? It's very difficult to distinguish which one's which.
Yeah, I'm stationary. I'm not moving a smidgen. Or else you can get it.
Okay, I'll make it a bit prettier. Just give me a second.
And how long was the recording? Was it like, it must have been 2 hours or whatever?
2.5 hours to get a 10-second clip that you can see here.
2.5 hours. Was this time lapse or was it long exposure?
It's the Star Trail mode on the P900.
Yeah, it must be long exposure, that, because it's not snipping them together, is it? It's continuous, right?
No, it's snipping them. It turns on, turns off, turns on, turns off. Takes.
Yeah, it's quality.
How long does it take for the ISS to go around the Earth again? How long?
90 minutes.
I'm loving all the satellites that go zipping past it in your picture as well. Like, look at them as like.
Can we, on the flat Earth side, try not to beg the question in our statements? No. The ISS does not go around Earth, right?
Yeah, he's playing. He's playing it in the. How can I put it?
Well, yeah, in begging the question kind of thing. But,
yes.
but even if you think about that for a second, it took you 2.5 hours, and you only got partial arc. You didn't get a full circle, right?
No, that's the key.
So if that picture of the ISS is a time lapse of the whatever star trails, they should have a full circle, not just partial one, right? You would think.
Well, it gets worse than that.
Oh God! So if we beg the question that it's in a presupposed orbit falling around the Earth, 90 minutes taking a full orbital begging the question path, then unless, as Mitchell from Australia put it, it's doing barrel rolls through the sky, you're not going to get those circular motions. But we've got to assume it's in a presupposed orbital path in a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum in order to figure out whether or not they'd be getting star rotations that are based on the polar rotation that we observe here on the ground. That's a lot of stuff to have to disclaim just to get into this argument. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, but it gets worse than that if we're going to kill it within their paradigm. If I put that tripod with that P900 in the back of my truck, and I just went, say, 70 miles an hour. Now, the ISS is supposedly going 17,500 miles per hour. What kind of picture do you think I'm going to get after 2.5 hours?
A jiggled mess.
You can't travel to this light in the sky, claimed to be a tin can falling around a sphere Earth by way of presupposition in a sky vacuum. That light in the sky, wherever it may be, you cannot travel to put a tripod on it to film something. Because there is no version that they claim. The tin can version with the cameras pointing at the sets. That version of that light in the sky as a physical entity does not exist. It's just a light in the sky. Now, that light might go past and you can plot it in the heliocentric reification at 90 minutes for a orbit. But we don't have orbits. Nothing's falling around anything. And we don't have a sky vacuum, so there's no tin can in there to take pictures from. So the whole thing's nonsense.
It is, and that's the point. If you think about what I said, the only way that picture can be taken is the way I did it, on a tripod, on a stationary platform that's not moving. Yet they take it and they overlay it and say they got it from the second law of thermodynamics violation outer space on the ISS.
You just can't think in three-dimensional space, 10th. No flat earther can think in three-dimensional space.
Three-dimensional space? I can think in three-dimensional space without any trouble whatsoever. Do you mean you can't think in four-dimensional space?
Oh, well, four in that. Well, they normally say three, but yeah, four.
Well, if you give me time, I just might have a chance.
Boom, boom. Yeah, so pseudo-Ramonian 4 space, that would be length, breadth, depth, and time. That's 4 space. They say we don't understand 4 space. Yeah, well, that's because it's just conceptual and it has no bearing on reality. It's merely this mathematical construct that's been derived by a man called Einstein. Has no bearing on reality. It's pseudo, just some geometry that's been created to give some sort of plausible explanation to the movements of the lights in the sky by way of imposing this maths onto a heliocentric model that already existed. Wow, isn't Einstein wonderful? Well, no, because it doesn't give you an actual force. It's just maths. And the world that it's imposed on doesn't exist. So, no, it really bears no bearing on anything. Einsteinian mathematics of spending this 4 space. It's pseudo, by his own description. Pseudo-Ramonian 4 space. Length, breadth, depth, and time. That geometry. It's just conceptual. Doesn't exist.
Yeah, it was last year sometime when I talked to you guys about star trails. When I first started investigating everything about flat Earth, I saw some star trails from a photographic site. It wasn't YouTube, it was just a really good site. And the way they describe how they get star trails, they go, this is proof that the Earth is not spinning, because there's no way you can take this picture with the Earth spinning. And so it's always been one of the top arguments for me. And now that Mitchell did what he did, and we all have done over the year plus since I made that statement, it's now, we can form this into another housekeeping question in some way. This is an impossible task to do unless your tripod is stationary and cannot be touched or jiggled in any way to get those concentric circles.
Yeah, so the response from them is no, because the ISS movement is nice and linear and it's nice and smooth, and as it's in its falling orbit, it can actually observe them in this way. And watch, if you look in my 3D graphics program with my orbits all presupposed and my sphere Earth all presupposed and the trajectory of the ISS plotted really carefully, you can see that the lights that are moving by its vantage point actually do take a circular motion. It's not actually the same as a polar what would you call it, circular path that you'd observe from the ground. It just coincidentally looks like it because this is how the maths works out in the model where I presuppose that this thing is in a sky vacuum falling around a presupposed sphere Earth. So there you go, I've just responded to all of your concerns about the ISS not being able to acquire these circular lights that you see from these pictures. Well, I've addressed it all. And the whole time I did it, I was begging the question of a sphere Earth, I was begging the question of a sky vacuum, I was begging the question of orbits, but I still addressed your issue, didn't I there, 10th man?
No, you didn't, but nice try. In 90 minutes, you're going a full circumference, so that's impossible.
No, you're not.
That picture.
No, you're not. But wait to beg the question, 10th man. My point is that in order to have this argument, you've got to beg the question.
Let's have fun. What speed is the Earth rotating at the equator?
It's not.
10th man.
It's not.
Well, hang on. So it's not rotating.
No.
Then why do I see the streaks on the Earth? Is that from the ISS moving?
The streaks of what? The lights that move as you film them.
When you see the space pictures of the concentric circles and you look at the Earth below, the way NASA puts it out, the Earth lights are streaking. So that's caused by movement. Is that the Earth moving or is that the ISS moving?
The ISS and the pictures that it takes are all fake. This is a subtle difference between the 2013, 14, 15 arguments presented by people like Math Powerland in regards to Earth from space. Now, Math Powerland's positioning in terms of that argument back then was you, the individual watching this right now, you will never get that vantage point. You will never go out to space and look back at the Earth as presented in these paintings. That's the positioning back then. Now the positioning is these pictures are automatically fake because the place they are claimed to have come from cannot exist. It violates natural law. Not you can't go to space because space is not real. So the difference between 2014 arguments and 2020 arguments in terms of what could be possible from the ISS is cut it off its legs. As much as we've praised Mitchell from Australia for highlighting this, and it's like, yeah, that's right. Yeah, you couldn't do it if you were on a bloody spinning ball Earth, falling around in orbit in a tin can in a sky vacuum. You wouldn't get those star rotations. But the points that are important are all the bits that Mitchell preceded that with. The bits that you're just disclaiming as, well, if it's falling at 17,500 mile an hour, well, you've got to beg that question, which leaves that in the mind of the person watching, 10th Man. I'm sorry to lecture you, but this is critical.
You're talking a whole different subject. I already agree with all that. What I'm saying is that, first of all, everything you said, I agree with, because I argue that point. It's in the violation, so those pictures aren't real. Now, that said, since I do take star trail photography, I know how it works. And then I say, look at the little trick they're playing on you, because we have three options here. One is the Earth is moving. Two, ISS is falling and moving, or the stars are moving. Now, when you do star trail photography, you need a very stable tripod, and it cannot move. So right there, I'm trying to say that in their fakery, they even blow it.
Fair enough. But I would cut you off at your legs and say, no, both of your options can be debunked before you get into giving them as an option. In other words, if Earth's rotating as one of the options, no, we'd have a 15 degrees an hour deviation. Not demonstrable.
And I'm going to be that guy that says, no, 10th Man, you're wrong. I figured out how they could have done that if the Earth was a globe. Because if it goes around in 90 minutes, that means effectively the stars are going to go the other way. And that's...
What do you think I'm saying, Arvid?
Well,
yeah,
you said
you're now lending credence to 10th Man, and his point's valid. But it's only valid with all the disclaimers I'm moaning at him for not giving, instead saying, well, one of the options is
I already know you gave those disclaimers, so why would I give them again?
It's not for you. You are the canvas for the audience, 10th Man. Please don't take it personally. It's worth reiterating 10 times with you disagreeing. I'm glad of what's happening, but it's nothing personal against you, and I know you understand.
No, go ahead. Now that I know I'm the canvas, brush it over.
It's a subtle difference between how you're phrasing it, 10th Man, which is one of the options on the table is ISS falling around a presupposed sphere Earth with this 90-degree presupposed orbit and its 17,500 mile an hour trajectory speed. Well, if that's an option on the table, I'm going to step in and say, no, it must be phrased. It cannot be in a presupposed orbit, begging the question falling around Earth. It cannot be travelling at 17,500 miles an hour around a sphere Earth, because number one, Earth is not spinning. Number two, Earth has no Earth curve. And number three, the claim that it's taking these pictures from a region that doesn't exist because it's violating natural law will always take precedent to the assumption that it is falling around an Earth that's spherical at 17,500 miles an hour. And the pictures it could be taking if it was doing that wouldn't work because. I think everything that precedes it in disclaimer is much more important to stress to an audience than the debunking of the claimed spherical motion that they take from this place that does not exist. And that's always going to be more important to me. So with that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you're watching this live on Nathan Oakley 1980, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. Another massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. Stay tuned if you're watching on either premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
After admitting it was all fake, is that if you ever did do star trails photography, you need a very stable tripod. You can't do it on a moving car or a supposed spacecraft in a falling orbit. That was the whole point. So their fakery is what I'm pointing to is even more bogus than the statement, because we know there's no outer space. We know it's not up there. But then the fakery is even bad, because in order to get those concentric circles, you can't be moving. The camera cannot be moving.
I have a question.
Yes.
Why are we told that we see sunsets and sunrises?
The heliocentric model asserts that Earth is turning, and they are, in terms of the solar system, in a fixed position relative to us, and Earth is turning underneath those objects that are claimed to be physical, in this case the sun, causing them to appear to move over us when in fact we turn under them. That's the assertion by the heliocentric model of Earth.
So then why would the sun appear to continue to move when taken from drone footage that is not connected to the spinning Earth?
Because Earth is not spinning. If Earth was spinning, then indeed you would track with the sun at 15 degrees an hour as Earth rotated under the drone. It's also claimed that that is precisely what is proving Earth does spin, because they claim with gyroscopes and pendulums to observe this 15 degrees an hour deviation. That 15 degrees an hour deviation that would be Earth turning underneath the drone and lockstep with the sun, because it's us claimed to be turning under the sun, not the sun moving over us.
So if that were the case and we were spinning lockstep with the atmosphere, which obviously does not happen, but if that was the case, we then would not have Coriolis effect.
Correct. Coriolis effect is the 15 degrees an hour of the Earth turning underneath, causing you, attached to an Earth turning 15 degrees an hour, to observe something not in your reference frame, that would be a non-inertial spinning reference frame spinning at 15 degrees an hour, to seem to drift. So, what you would observe is a drone taking off, and you drifting away from it, and it seeming to drift away from you at 15 degrees an hour. Now, the drone's just hovering, and for this claim that is alleged to prove Earth spinning true, you would have to observe your drone drifting away from you at 15 degrees an hour, like the football is claimed to drift through the goalposts by Neil deGrasse Tyson, because a claim of Earth turning underneath the football at 15 degrees an hour, causing this apparent deflection. But we do not observe it in the drone, and as you rightly point out, because we don't see it drifting away from us at 15 degrees an hour, the drone also observes the sun moving over it. Meaning it's not us turning under the sun causing the sun to look like it's moving. The sun just appears to move over our head, not because we're moving at all. We'd have 15 degrees an hour deviation if we did, and we don't. No Coriolis effect observed on Earth. The effect that you would observe if you launched the same drone off a roundabout, which you were spinning on, would be to say that the drone hovers and you're rotating underneath it, going, oh, look, it looks like it's coming towards me. Oh, and then it's going away. It's coming to, well, that's you rotating underneath a hovering drone, and the exact same effect should be observed on a spinning Earth. Drone takes off, you spin underneath. But we don't see that. So the sun is not moving because it appears to move with us turning underneath it, Chocolate, as is asserted by the globe Earth model.
Chocolate, did you bring that up because you saw Dirt's footage of it? The RTRH?
Well, I saw that a while ago, yeah, but I'm just saying, as you guys were talking about the International Swimming Station, I'm sitting here thinking about this nonsense with the star rotation, and we're supposed to be spinning, and that's what makes these things look like they're moving. I'm like, wait a minute. I mean, we are told all the time, sunsets and sunrises, idiots. That proves we're spinning. Yeah. Okay, so if I take off from your spinning ball, the sun's still moving?
Well, then that's my point. That's my point.
How the hell is that happening?
Well, didn't
because the inertial reference frame and the Earth are spinning together? So then where's that Coriolis y'all were talking about before?
Yeah, where's the 15 degrees an hour deviation to prove it's spinning then? We don't have that. So we don't have proof it spins then.
Chocolate. So the ITRH goes into the inertial reference frame with his drone, correct?
That would be the atmosphere.
Yes and no.
Mike,
No, because no, there is no separate inertial reference frame with a non-inertial reference frame spinning underneath it. So in reality, no. He just launches a drone. The claim
I agree.
would be that, like Neil deGrasse Tyson asserts on a sphere Earth that spins underneath a football to cause the goal to be scored, then the assertion would be by the heliocentric side that yes, Earth launches his drone, and according to the Ball Earth claim, it's then entering the inertial reference frame, not attached with the Earth spinning underneath the drone. That's what's claimed. However, that's not the case.
Correct. But I'm working on getting to a point here. Yeah, since he started with the as you go up and you look at the sun in DITRH's drone video, it looks a lot different than if you're at the seashore watching it go away versus if you're higher and you watch it go away. It's a whole different footage, and it just disappears. It just seems to be moving away from you.
So can you tell me what Dirth saw at the seashore?
No, it's what I see at the seashore is different.
No, I don't want to know what you saw at the seashore. I want to know what Dirth saw at the seashore.
I can't recall. I'm not referencing what he saw at the seashore.
You can't recall what Dirth saw at the seashore, but you want to tell me what you saw at the seashore. Well, you tell me what you saw at the seashore, and later we'll hear what Dirth saw at the seashore.
Too many seashores here. I'm going to lose my pronunciation skills here real quick. What I'm saying is the way the drone shows it is just beautiful. The way on the ground, it looks a little different because of the angular resolution and the deck and the stuff in the air that's low to the ground, I guess, is what my point is.
There was a problem I did see with DITRH's a couple of his clips, being the fact that the sun literally fades out of view without going beneath the horizon like it's supposed to.
Right.
Well, that's kind of funny. Why is it fading out? Or is it the cause of the sunset supposed to be this ball?
Earth curve.
Right. Yeah, the ball, and we're spinning away, and then because we're spinning away, the sun appears to dip below the horizon. Well, how the hell is it just disappearing without even touching the horizon? Looking exactly like it would if it was just moving away from the camera?
Yep.
That's funny.
That's my point.
And it's doing that while the drone is in what they call the inertial reference frame. So how's that happening? All types of problems.
Well, the big problem there in their model is that, as Nathan said, in their model, they have this inertial reference frame. So the drone, if the atmosphere, as they say, is lockstep, the drone would be tilting upwards and going with the turn of the Earth, but it's not. It's got so many problems.
Exactly.
But I've actually got a clip of oh damn, I did have a clip. I pressed the button. Yep. I had it all queued up and then I've pressed the button accidentally. Here we go.
What this is the sun on a day where there's zero clouds, zero chemtrails. We see the sun. Can you see my mouse?
Yeah.
So we see the sun go down, 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 and it gets to this apparent horizon line and it stops. It just stays there. It stays there for a long time. This is like 1200 speed, and it's going away, and it never goes down, and it just disappears. So it just disappears. Now, my friends are down at the beach. They said the sun set 10 minutes earlier. I'm filming this from high altitude with a 4K camera on a super clear day, and then I'm zooming in on it, and it just disappears, and it's a perfectly clear day. It stops going down, and we can recreate this with a glass dome and a pen light, and you move the light over the dome, and the light will climb, and it'll go.
No offense to Dirth, but he's not going to get the Just So story. Sorry, Dirth. But yes, absolutely. We see the sun fading out. Well, it's supposed to go down, right? Get cut off like we see when we're very low to the ground, with a very limited angle, I might add, to the sun. Well, Dave Weiss has increased his angle. He's gone up with his drone and his 4K camera, and he doesn't observe it dipping below the horizon and then disappearing like a half coin and then disappearing completely as it goes over the edge of a physical sphere edge horizon formerly known as Earth curve. He watches it fade out.
And that would have to happen at any altitude if the rotation of the Earth was the cause of the sunset.
Precisely. Wouldn't make any difference. Inertial, non-inertial, it doesn't make any difference which reference frame it's in. If it's going down because it's disappearing behind a physical sphere edge geometric horizon that is now denied to ever be capable of being seen and only exists in the maths, then it would have to go behind it, not fade out. But we have no idea what the sun is.
To me, the fade out for me is like a black swan for the sunsets and sunrises, or just the axial rotation itself.
Yeah.
Because just the fact that it could fade out even once, that's not supposed to be what happens. Right. According to you guys, it's the turn of the Earth.
Totally agree. It's one of those, we would get, the rebuttals would be things like, well, what's causing it to fade out? In other words, the burden of proof reversal fallacy would come. Well, what is the sun then? You know, and it's like, well, I don't know. But I know it's not a burning ball of gas in a sky vacuum that's moving behind the edge of a reified sphere edge. It's definitely not what it is claimed to be in the heliocentric model based on the astronomical distances derived from Venus having the same radius value as a presupposed spherical Earth either. So these distances and these claims of physicality and violations of natural law, gases not expanding into vacuums that are burning because of gravitational accretion millions of years ago, all that is bullshit. And Dave Weiss's imagery demonstrates it. You don't fade out if you're a burning ball of gas in a sky vacuum moving behind the edge of a sphere Earth. That is not how the sun would behave. Now, we all know this is all obvious to us, but it's still fascinating to watch his footage. And at least he's going to the effort of producing footage like that. I mean, hats off to him. Dave Weiss has consistently put out footage like that for a long time.
That was my point that this conversation finally got to, which is Earth curve is not there if it fades out. There is no Earth curve.
Yep, correct.
Earth curve or the Earth turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not moving behind anything, so it's not definitely moving behind a physical reified Earth curve edge. And it's not moving behind something because that Earth curve edge is turning as that particular physically reified body in a sky vacuum stays relatively stationary as we turn. Both of those things are debunked just with that one piece of footage.
Beautiful time to be a flat earther.
I can see this is terrifying to them, though. Well, what is it? What is that shiny ball of light that I thought was enormous? Well, I don't know. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't it wondrous? Don't we live in an amazing place?
And in the meantime, they're asking us, oh, well, why doesn't it change angular size? Right, okay.
It did! You just watched it change angular size as it faded out to nothing. It did change angular size. It got smaller. Who cares?
That's what I'm saying. Like, it literally faded out into nothing. Would that not be some sort of a change that you guys should expect to see or shouldn't expect to see?
A change in not actual size. Who cares? You know, when they ask us, why does the not actual size of the sun, that's angular size, not change in not actual size, that's angular size, as it moves from its not actual refracted position throughout the day? Why is that, Mr. Flat Earther? Why does the not actual size of the sun not change its not actual size as it moves from its not actual position? Who cares, you moron?
Hi, guys. About this, you know, it makes me think again. I think that the sun disk apparition is secondary to the daylight. So what if we just see it not as like a hologram or whatever? It's more complicated when you do it like that. But more like maybe it's the primary lens flare. You know,
the only way we'll
flares
find the answer
also
to
kind
this.
of fade out like that. Maybe it is just the primary thing. And the lens flares are like the secondary effects that can happen and all that.
We're only going to get the answer to this by praying. Dear Lord Jesus, please let us know if the sun is actually causing the daylight. Amen. I'll let you know.
Yeah, we read it in Genesis.
Yeah, it is causing the daylight.
We just read it yesterday.
How dare you? It's like a baller. So we didn't have that conversation then yesterday, Paul.
No, they all forgot.
Yeah, they all conveniently forgot that conversation. No, the sun does not cause the daylight. Now, you can say it's governing it, ruling over it, moving in conjunction with it, but by biblical standards, that is not the case. And I'm not even.
What do you mean by that? I don't understand what you say. It doesn't cause. I really need to see where you're getting that from, though.
We spent an hour on it yesterday.
Then the sun came.
We spent an hour on it yesterday. I'm not going to rehash that whole conversation. I can't believe this is happening.
No. Listen.
That's
okay,
the order.
If you're going to do that, it's not worth the conversation. If you're going to be patient and talk about it, I'm willing. But if you're not going to have the ears to hear, what's the point?
Fine, I'll summarize it. No worries.
Now you're projecting, Tanth.
No problem. I'll bite. So, based on the account of the creation story, day and night are created. Then, these bodies are created to rule over those periods of time that are already in existence because they've been created. Now, those day and night derivatives are not God himself because it's part of the creation story. It's separate and would be redundant if it was actually him. We established all of this yesterday. So, given that day and night in the biblical account are created first, then you have the attribution of these physical bodies. That does not give a causal link between the bodies, which are described as governing over them and various other words that are not causal. Like gardeners.
Okay. I'm going to send you this whole... Hang on.
But I'm just going to give my example. Like a gardener governs over the grass. He's not the cause of the grass growing.
All right. So this all started when QE brought it up, right?
Indeed, I also blame QE.
Okay, I'm going to send it over, but the last one, hang on, I better do it this way. I can't see which. Okay, you might have to move it around, but here, let me just, because I took a screenshot. Okay, here we go. I'll just do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 coming your way, and Master B.
Master B.
Yeah. And let's just go over it. But again, you might have to move it around because it's not in order.
Okay, I've got it.
At least one of them.
It's on. You can read it all. It's all good.
Okay, go to New Jerusalem where it says, no, I'm sorry. Go to chapter 21, English Standard Version on top where it says, then I saw. Are you there?
Yep.
Okay. So this is chapter 21 of Revelations. Now, this is the new heaven, the new earth. Look what it says. And then we're going to jump to the end of this chapter, I'm sorry. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband, etc., etc., etc. And it talks about wiping the tears away. Okay, now the very next slide is verse 22. Do you see it?
Yes.
Okay. I put it all there, so if you want to go read it in context, you get the whole thing. But look what it says here. And I saw no temple in the city, for its temple is the Lord God, the Almighty, and the Lamb. Of course, that's Jesus. And the city had no need of sun or moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light, and its lamp is the Lamb. Now, when we read Genesis yesterday, we're talking about creation and an earth being made for man. And we knew by the reading that it wasn't until the fourth day that the luminaries were put inside the firmament. Prior to that, the glory of God is the light. As it says here, it returns back, because when you think of light in the Bible, you have to keep it to context. It says we're children of God, but then it says in another scripture, we're children of the light. So light is contrasted with darkness many times. So the darkness cannot comprehend the light. The light shineth in the darkness. So if you go with the context, excuse me, of Genesis, prior to an actual luminary being made that governed the day and night, light already existed. And what is that light? Now, is it the glory of God, as it says here at the end? Does it return back to it to where we don't need those luminaries? That's my point.
I know your point might be rhetorical in nature, but I'm still going to address it. So there's two words that need addressing in that statement for what you say to stack up. The first is glory, and the other is given. So what does glory mean?
The glory to me is when you see God in his essence, all you could do is it's the most fulfillment thing. You glorify him, and because it's so much to.
So you give honor to.
Well,
give honor to. So it isn't the thing
well,
itself,
again,
it's being
context.
honored. Or
Well, hang on. For the glory of God gives it.
Equivocation fallacy.
Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on.
Look, I'd be more than willing to do it, but you got to allow. Look, Bible Literist did a show with Quantum Eraser going about how you got to go and use the whole Bible in context because God does not contradict or change. And so when you go from Genesis to Revelation and you go and do a key search for glory, you're going to find glory in many different contexts. I'm trying to keep this in context to what this scripture is saying. Okay, it's very important that you do that because if it's talking about light and his glory, it's different than maybe when it's talking about his glory and his righteousness, his purity. It could be the glory of his judgment because it's a righteous judgment. God gets glorified for everything because he is perfect. That's what the Bible teaches. So it has to be contextual. So verse 22, again, and I saw no temple in the city. Okay, so why? For its temple is the Lord God, the Almighty, and the Lamb. So instead of a temple like the Jews had in the past, the new heaven, new earth, God is the temple. His presence is that. So there's no building. And the city has no need of a sun or moon to shine on it. Well, why does it not need a sun or moon? For the glory of God gives it light, and its lamp is the Lamb, obviously a reference to Christ. There is no night anymore. It's just light.
You're talking about heaven. That's not the same place.
No, I am trying to say
We were
you
talking
that
about the sun. You totally rumpus this, although it's very interesting, and I'm not opposing the Bible. This
How
has
did I
nothing to do
rumpus
with the
this?
argument.
How did I rumpus this?
No, not rumpus me. You did what rumpus do.
How did I do it?
Go off grid and go or track off into
No, I'll go back
long
to
stories that
Genesis 1.
don't really relate to the subject, and you
No,
equivocated the heavenly situation of the light there, which comes from God, with earth, which is not the same, even though, because it's describing what it's like there. It's not like, this is not the journal of God, of let's follow God around and he's always, no. That's
the
not
journal
what's
of
going on.
God. The journal of God is from Genesis to Revelation for a Christian. That is our source. I'm not making any. I'm not making any statements here. Okay, Arwen, I need to finish. In the beginning, Genesis, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Here it is. Then God said, let there be light, and there was light. Now, all I'm saying is that this light occurred without a luminary. Then I take you to Revelations, where we do not have the luminaries, sun and moon anymore, and God is the light. I'm not making anything other than that. Simple as that. God can make light without a sun and the moon, and God can make light with a sun and the moon. That's all I'm saying.
And what does that have to do with the original argument?
I am just trying to say that the record of creation shows that the first 3 days, there was no luminaries that governed the day and night. It was just light, and God did it that way, and darkness without luminaries. I'm not saying anything more than what the scripture says.
Yeah, so you're making our point then.
Yeah, you're making our
because
point, which is
governing
that
is not a causal relationship. That was Nathan's original point. So
yeah, I was spot on. That's our point, 10th. So
but that's my point. So where's the disconnect?
Well, it's Paul that's got the issue, because Paul completely contradicted that when he said, well, the sun does give the earth light. It is the cause. And we're like, hold on, what about the conversation we had yesterday where we didn't establish that?
It does, because it saes it does.
Doesn't it? Governs over it.
Way to contradict yourself.
I sidetracked the discussion. I went on to the next verse. Or let there be light in that next verse. And so I sort of red herringed it just on a personal note, and that got everyone confused. All right, that's what happened. Focus, people.
How are we confused?
I could tell you where it says it.
Hold on.
So you're just saying the sun don't give light?
Wait, hold on. How are we confused?
Is that another way of saying you don't understand? Because
No, I'm going to get him to clarify. It might be an ad hom. We'll find out in a minute. What do you mean? How are we confused? Can you explain how?
No, I'm not saying that you're confused. I'm saying everyone doesn't understand what the argument is. You guys are talking past each other about the luminaries. My point wasn't about the luminaries at all. It was just that verse. Remember when I said that God is light? I always thought that God was light, right? I still think that, based on the passages in Revelation, like I said, and then in John. The trouble that I had with was, and it was in fact Paula who brought it to my attention when I said in verse 3 right there, that I said, well, God was the light right there. And she said, not so fast. And she actually brought it to my attention, and I looked at the verse and I said, geez, you're right. So read that passage right there. Isn't it redundant?
Yeah, well, it's the same in the passage that 10th Man's just focused on. And the city has no need of sun or moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light. That's not God.
Right, but I'm talking about in Genesis.
Yeah, and I'm saying this concurs.
This concurs with what?
The point in regards to either your point with whether or not God is the light in that particular example, or in our discussion that we've just had, the luminaries being unnecessary or not causal, that's backed in the same statement that's been given by 10th Man when it's describing how something is being given light, and what is giving it is the glory of God. So in that example, it's not the light of God in that there and then, even though that is what has created it and is it, if you want to look at it in those terms. I'm just saying in terms of how it's being described in the text, it's separated from it. It's being given.
You remember when I said, and I used the word because I don't know, I said, then that light that governed day and night prior to the luminaries being made, I said the word attached to the luminaries, meaning they took over from that point. It wasn't the previous way. That's all I was trying to say. Now, you guys are trying to go deep into detail as to God is light. Is it that light, or was it just a light without an object on that it was coming or emanating from? But verse 14, it says, then God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night. So it's clear that the first 3 days, light was dividing day and night, but it wasn't luminaries inside the firmament, because in verse 14, it says, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons and for days and years. And it goes on to say, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth. And it was so. So when you say the sun doesn't give light on the earth, that's ridiculous, because it says right here the sun is giving light on the earth.
Yeah, we understand that that body gives light, and that would be the very matter-of-fact description I would give if I was to look at that particular thing appearing. But Arwin's point is to say that while that obviously light body appears, it's not necessarily causally linked. And until this particular part of the Bible, the Genesis story, was being read out, and quantum erasure is a side note, well, actually his main point, which is to say that he was under the assumption that in that particular passage, God himself is the light, when Paul is pointing out, well, no, it's part of the creation story, it's being put upon something else as opposed to him. It would be redundant if it was the case that it was him. But it parallels Arwin's point. Well, up until then, it was just pie in the sky Arwin saying, well, we don't actually necessarily know that, as described by heliocentrism, the sun comes over the corner of Earth, bringing light as it does so. Well, the fact that the sun is there during the day doesn't necessarily mean it's causally linked. And suddenly, in biblical terms, there's credence being lent to what Arwin's asserting if you not necessarily read it in a particular way. If you just read it, it's how it's described and the steps that it's taken. And you're backing us when you go through them. And when it gets to the point that you infer that there's a causality, Arwin and myself are just saying, well, no, you're interpreting that causality, but it doesn't explicitly state that. And it doesn't.
Well, hang on. When you say causality or causally linked, what are you actually saying versus what I'm reading?
What I'm saying is
versus governing.
Governing, and exactly. Go on, you go, Arwin.
Right, it's a difference between governing or ruling over. That's like a presence, and it is predominant in some way. But yeah, a ruler did not create the whole thing from scratch. He did not make every person in his kingdom. He did not build every brick, No, he rules over it. It's not the same thing as something that's directly responsible. Like fire causes the heat. The heat is there because of the fire.
Hold on, 10th.
What do you do?
Hold on.
What do you do for verse 16 then?
Well, hold on. Just before we get to verse 16, the point is, I think that's quite important in terms of how the Bible is structured, because you can't have the sun taking credit for the light if God is light, right? That's quite critical. So
I'm not saying that.
But Paul is.
I'm not saying that.
But Paul is. Hold on. Well, let's. Paul's got stuff on screen. Hopefully, a pipe up. Paul is saying that though.
Well, can I finish my part, or Paul, do you want to go first?
No, go ahead and finish your thought. I'll try to come in.
Okay. I'll wrap up my part. It's pretty simple. Verse 16. Then God made two great lights. That's the cause. God's the cause. God made two great lights.
He made two great lights, but they're not the cause of the light that's the day and the night. That's come prior to it in the story.
Hang on. No, prior, yes, we've already covered that. For whatever reason, God waited till the fourth day to make the luminaries so that they do it. Prior to that, he just had light and darkness without luminaries. That's all I'm saying, because that's all it says. I can't read into the text more than
I think it's critical. Before Paul, I'm going to get Paul to give his two pennyworth in a second, but I think it's quite a critical detail, because at the heart, and I mean that in the most literal terms, at the heart of the heliocentric model, Earth at the center, right? You've got us bowing to the sun, and the sun causing the day. So the sun is the most important thing in that worldview. It's at the center of the model. Heliocentric. Helios at center. Sun at center.
I'm with you.
So it is literally attributed to the causality of our day. The life-giving day and the sun's... I'm even saying it myself in my phrasing. I was about to say the sun's energy.
They're making it a god.
Yeah, you're getting there. You're getting there before I've got there. You're stealing my thunder. Exactly. They're turning the sun into a god. Well, if you, as Arwin has suddenly done, it really sort of shook me up when he did it the first time, because it's sort of, he's detaching that sun from its responsibilities to give the light in the morning. And when you suddenly, it broke part of my cognition that I didn't expect to have broken. I thought, I don't treat the sun as I used to. Well, I did. A lot of the wiring was still there. And then when you get into the biblical description of it, it's so carefully phrased for Arwin to have a point here, right? It's not being given the responsibility of actually causing the day. And according to the Bible's context, God's the cause. You've said it yourself just a moment ago. He is the light, not the sun. It does produce light, and is light, obviously.
No, I totally disagree.
Just as a layperson, when you guys, like somebody that doesn't read the Bible, it's when you guys were reading those verses yesterday that I realized that, oh shit, there was a day and a night before there were luminaries. So does that mean that the sun is the cause of day and night if there was a day and night already before there was a sun?
Booyah, that makes 3. It's not 2 against 2 anymore. Let's hear Paul. He's been waiting on the sidelines for ages. Go on, Paul, if you can.
I'd like to come back to it after he's done.
Okay. I mean, the reason I pulled these passages up, it does say, there's passages in the Bible and Isaiah and other verses that say that the light, or the sun causes the light. It causes the day because it can be snuffed out and all that stuff. Now, I have been thinking about this a little bit in more of more theological broad strokes from a different perspective. That's why I can say the sun causes the light, because of these verses. Well, you got, obviously, dominion, what does that mean? And that's what we're getting back to, is that's the cause of. Well, ultimately, even theologically, God is the cause of everything. He brought everything into existence. So like in verse 1, he spoke and light started. The light didn't exist. Then the physical notion of light did not exist until God spoke it and brought it into existence. And then he created the luminaries to be the one to rule or govern, or I guess now say cause of this light.
You made that one up.
Hey, just finish.
I said a broad stroke. I said
Hold on, broad stroke. Dominion. That's a great word. What does dominion mean? Great word.
Rule over, have dominion, whatever.
Okay.
I looked it up
So in governmental terms, right? The rulers of your country have dominion over you. Would you agree?
Yes, I guess.
And so therefore they have dominion over your children. Would you agree?
But they're not the cause of the children. No.
We get there. You get there, right?
Okay, I get it. I mean, I know. But again, it's like Kent was also saying. You've got to look at all the scripture. So we do know that the light, the luminaries cause light on the earth. And we can even see that from the physical nature of that. We can, I can hold my hand.
Hold on.
I can hold my hand against the sun and
hold on. So hold on, Paul. You can't just do that. You can't just assert the antithesis of our position. Like that's going to debunk our position. That's not fair.
Can I try to take over for a second,
Can we read the scriptures?
Arwin hasn't had much. Sorry, 10th. Go on, Arwin.
Right. Sorry. I'll try to make it short. But yeah. Okay, luminaries, like stars in the sky, they do make a light. You can pick it up because you can see it, right? But what this case really is the sunlight the cause of the daylight? That luminary, that specific luminary, is it the cause of the daylight? Well, the Bible says it governs it. And yeah, you could argue that stars in the night when there is no daylight, that they do give off their own light, but they're not the cause or the lack thereof of any light. Any of the luminaries do not cause any light. Daylight.
I disagree. It says the opposite in the Bible.
No, it doesn't. Everything that was read out said it doesn't, including you.
Arwin,
you confirmed it earlier, and now you're back.
Arwin, if you're going to do this, it's not worth it because you don't have ears to hear. I'm going to read you 100 scriptures, possibly at least 50, that will prove my last statement. But it's not worth it if you're going to act this way.
Act what way? He's not doing anything. What's he doing? Now?
Well, why don't you replay the show and know exactly what I mean by act this way?
I will. I will, and I'll talk with everyone.
This has turned into an ad hom fest. I don't understand, 10th man. What's he done wrong? I don't get it.
Please.
What's he done wrong?
Listen, I've been reading the Bible for 46 years. I think I have a little bit to put into here, input-wise. Now, in Revelations, I still can't finish verse 16. I am jumping all around because we can't stay on topic here. All right, but let me just jump to Revelations, where God causes the sun not to give its light anymore. Now, God is the cause. We're fighting over such little things that don't matter. The point here is lost in all of this back and forth. Without God, nothing exists that exists. That, I think we can all agree, that's what the Creator does. He created everything. In Genesis, it clearly states that there was day and night before the luminaries were made. But then when he switches it over, in verse 4, he says he put them in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth. Okay, so now it's switched. Why he did it, how he did it, I don't care. It just tells us that.
Yeah.
Armin, please.
And
did it? It doesn't describe that.
It says they give light on the earth. Yeah.
Finish, Arwin.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's the same.
First,
let him finish. Arwin. I'm interrupting too, 10th. Sorry. Let him finish, Arwin.
It's look. I'm patient, but I'm losing my patience because you won't let me read the scripture.
Sorry.
Verse 16, then God made two great lights. He made two great lights. God's the cause. He made two things. The greater light to rule the day. Well, what is that? That seems to be the sun in my world. And the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. That there tells me what prior was day and night has been changed to this new regime. This is the way it's going to be.
I don't buy that. Not one bit.
Oh, I read it. It's right there. I don't care if you buy it or not.
Because you're saying
Yeah, you're a daylight sun
rule
console
over.
baller.
Rule over something.
You refuse to admit that you're just wrong.
Oh, no, don't be like that,
everything
Arwen.
you read
Both of you. You're both as bad as each other.
Arwen.
Come there. This is a
Don't
nice
attack 'em.
conversation. I'm enjoying this talk. Let's not descend it into ad homs and you're just like this or that. No, let's not do that. This is a good conversation.
It says the sun will give her light and the moon will give her light. They are giving light according to the scripture.
And I agree. You've only got to look at the sun.
Then we're good.
No. You've only got to look at the sun to know that it's giving off light. Now, I have seen plenty of sunrises, and I'm going to use my words carefully here, where the light has come before the sun. So therefore, to say that it is the cause, I find absurd, because the sky lights up, and then the sun comes along, and it also has a brightness to it. So you get the day coming, and you get the sun coming. That's how it's perceived by me. Now, nothing in my description defies what is defined in the biblical account. Nothing. So it's saying it's going to come, and it's going to govern over it, and it's going to give off light. All of those things are true, but it does not infer that there's been a change of regime in terms of what's governing day and night. That isn't implied or stated.
So when
I
a flashlight, when I turn on the flashlight, and before you could see the lens of the flashlight, you see the ambient light that sends out. What's that? What's called
that's false.
It's
that's
not
false
a
equivalence.
luminary. That's what it is.
Yeah.
No, what? No. Okay, hang on. Don't say no without saying. If I don't see your actual lens or your flashlight, I'm still observing the light it throws off prior to seeing the actual lens where the light is. Am I right?
Okay, but if I have the same example and I've got lots of different lights all wired up to one circuit, and I happen to be holding one of those lights in the shape of a torch, like in your example, and I flick the switch, and you can see on the ceiling where I'm pointing the lamp/torch, you can see a point of light on the ceiling, nice and bright, shiny, a bit like the sun. Now, is that light on the ceiling, which came at exactly the same time as all the other lights that were turned on, is it the cause of the light in the room? No. Well,
No, I
hold on,
disagree,
how
because
can I
if
get
the
to the
sun-
end? Hello?
if the
This
sun-
is getting so
well,
frustrating if nobody
let
listens.
me disagree.
Can I get to the end of my point? Hello?
Oh, I didn't know you were. Okay, go
Not at
ahead.
all. So, in my example, we've got a light on the sky ceiling, which has come from a source, and coincidentally come at the same time as the room is lit up. Now, in my experience of how the day exists, how it comes to pass, the sky lights up, and then the sun comes. That is the order I observe. So, to infer that prior to my understanding now, or lack thereof as the case may be, my misapprehension was that as the sun comes around the bend of Earth, it lights up the sky before it gets here. Now that's all gone. I've got no examples or explanations for how that process occurs. I know what's happened before it got here, and I only know what happens when I see it. But prior to that happening, I get day happening first. Now, without a heliocentric explanation, I cannot infer, and I can't take the biblical text to infer it either, that the sun has caused that. Especially when it's being described as governing over it, having dominion over it, things of that nature. That doesn't give it a causal attribution, and you're implying it. And the reason I'm highlighting this, my point, is that when you consider the antithesis, which is the heliocentric model, they very much want us to have the sun at the centre of our existence causing daytime. Which to me is like, whoa, shouldn't that set off alarm bells? The model itself is called sun at centre. So why am I suddenly of the viewpoint that I should attribute day, when in the biblical account it didn't even need the luminaries to exist, to the sun, when they worship the damn thing? I'm going to tread very carefully in this conversation and discuss it at length. Prior to this, nothing biblical brought up on the show to now has held even the remotest amount of fascination as this has. I've got to be honest. And I'm sure the same's true for you, Arwen, right?
Well, I'll tell you right now, what you just said there describes what Quantum Eraser said. We're talking past each other. I am not even thinking about the heliocentric model, how they view the sun. I am just reading scripture, and scripture tells me that. My flashlight or torch example, I could do that anytime to prove it. I have a light on here in my bedroom. I'm looking at it. the actual light, but it's throwing light off against the walls. So if the sun is circuiting the earth, as I believe it is, right, not the earth moving, then the ambient light is going to come first, like you in the morning and I see, and then the actual sun, where you actually see the source of the light, it goes over, and I'm actually viewing the sun now. As the sun goes away, the ambient light still sticks around for a while until it's gone far enough away as it circuits the earth to where it's now darkness. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying anything more than that.
Okay, I've got one. There are periods where the sun has been removed from the equation in terms of the light and the darkness, right? Correct?
Well, give me a context. I don't know what you're talking about.
Like being stopped. What could stop?
That's Joshua. Yeah.
Right.
Thinking the same thing I was thinking. Because the sun was stopped at one point, right?
Go ahead, Chocolate. If you go ahead and make your point.
And the moon and
go on, Chocolate.
The moon and the sun.
No. Go ahead. I was just thinking the same thing. Like, I know there was a point in the Bible sometime when supposedly the sun was stopped, but now I'm trying to think of the consequences of what that means.
The consequences of that means it violated natural law, and God did a miracle in order to give Joshua the win in the battle. So yes, God did it and kept everything secured. You'd have to accept that, or else the consequences would be devastating.
Well, there's actually two. There's one where he stopped the sun, another one where he moved the sundial back. So he reversed the sundial. There's two in there. So there's got two sun miracors. Now I'd like to jump back in at any point.
Back?
Well, let me
hold on.
Oh,
Just let me just make
wow.
The point is, though, that the ultimate control of this light will always fall to God and not the sun.
Correct.
Guys, I have a point. I have a very short but interesting point. Please,
I'd like to get back in
I
at
beg
some
of
point.
you. Can I please insert?
Go ahead,
Okay, just this idea. He turned the sun back. So is that the reason why the daylight appears first and then the sun rises? Maybe originally it would come up and it would dawn. It might have been another side. Maybe he changed the sky clock. That's fascinating.
Yeah,
let me get to Revelations. Hang on, Paul. Go ahead, do your point out because I'm going to find it. I lost it.
Well, I'm going to go. I mean, I want to focus on the rule a little bit more. I think the sun is causing it, which we've already discussed that. But let's talk about the rule truly. God created sunlight first. If sunlight wasn't created first, there would be nothing for the sun and moon and stars to rule over.
I mean,
daylight. Light had to come first. Wait a minute. Light had to come first. Just like the land and the animals had to come first before God could put them in dominion over it. So there is that aspect of it.
You mean sunlight or light?
Light in general.
Yeah, but you said sunlight. You said sunlight.
I'm just
you
saying
said
light.
Sunlight. You meant light. And then
I meant light, yeah. So sorry. Light in general. If there wasn't light, there would be nothing for the sun, moon, and stars to rule over.
Right.
If there was no ground, no earth, no animals, there'd be nothing for man to rule over. So he created the thing that he wanted the things to rule over first, and then he created the things to have dominion over it.
But wouldn't you say that that's quite eloquent in the text? That it's, even if you scrutinize it to this level, you couldn't attribute worship to the sun. It would always go back to God. So therefore, to assert the cause would be to praise the sun, which is why I'm labouring this so much, Paul.
Yeah, but we're not saying that, Nathan. We only worship the Creator. We don't worship creation, as Romans chapter 1 says, that it's the reprobate mind that worships what God created rather than the Creator. You're bringing in something that's not even a part of our conversation. You're bringing in the heliocentric sun worship, which has anything to do with the Bible reading I gave.
Yeah, but isn't that always slightly part of the conversation? Because how many people read the Bible and are avid Bible readers and followers, but believe in the heliocentric model?
Right, but Chocolate, that's a tributary off the main river here. If you want to talk about that, I will talk about how these people don't know their Bible, don't know hermeneutics, and are fooled by scientism. That's a separate issue. All I'm saying is that when you do a Genesis to Revelation, and you study what the sun is, what the moon is, let me just diverse and go to the sixth seal in Genesis. It says in verse 12, chapter 6 of Revelations, I'm sorry. When he opened the sixth seal, I looked and behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth, and the full moon became like blood, and the stars of the sky fell to the earth as fig tree sheds its winter fruit when shaken by a gale. This is right before the end. This is what he does. He turns off the sun, basically, just black sackcloth. So God definitely
right before the end of what?
Doesn't this describe everything becoming dark, though?
Hold on, just hold on. Chocolate. Hold on.
I'm sorry, I just...
Chocolate, can you ask your answer? Ask your question again,
before
Chocolate.
the second
Hold on, Ten.
Before the
Can you just ask you... Can you ask your question again, Chocolate, because it got rumpused?
No, he just said before the end. I just wanted to know what exactly he meant.
Yeah, the second coming of Christ, the last days. Okay, after Antichrist, after all the chaos.
That's future tense.
I'm getting a little bit more as to why you guys are at odds with what I'm saying. You guys are bringing in the heliocentric lie and what people think. I'm not coming from that point. I'm just reading scripture, balancing it out with the rest of the Bible. So we are not supposed to worship any person, any created thing. We are only supposed to worship God, the creator. God caused everything that is good. Okay, so that is the way the Bible teaches what worship should be, and only to God. Even when the angels were seen by men, they were so frightened to see a holy creature like that they fell down and they said, "Get up! You could only worship God." So we're all in agreement, hopefully, on that. So when we look at Genesis and we look at light governing day and night before the sun and moon were made, that's all it is. I don't try to dig in and say what that light was or how it was.
That's fair enough.
I do.
Go on. Sorry. Go on.
Okay, so then I do go to the end of the Bible where it says that the new heaven, new earth doesn't need the sun or the moon because it's always light and it's God's light. Now, is there a connection? Perhaps. I don't know. But the point is, on day 4, he did make the sun. It does give its light, and the moon gives her light, separate light. And so now these luminaries do give light. But who made it? God. And that's how they function. I don't read into it any more than that.
Sure.
Well, what was the actual question? What's the actual problem?
About the causal relationship.
Yeah, if the day and night's already been established as part of the creation story, and then after the fact, the luminaries are introduced in the biblical account to rule over that which has already been created and defined, then they aren't the cause of it. They're merely governing over it. You know, keeping it safe, or whatever you want to describe it as. But ultimately speaking, the overall rule of it is down to God. We've established that. The reason it's interesting in terms of where Tent's like, well, I'm not coming from a juxtaposition between that and heliocentrism. Well, I am, because when Arwin originally said the sun might not necessarily actually be the cause of the day or night, obviously it seems to be intrinsically linked. That can't be questioned, or, you know, you'd be stupid to defy that because it's obvious. You just have to look at the damn thing. However, when Arwin said that, it made me think, my current understanding is basically wired with heliocentric worldviews because how I've been taught to reify what they say the sun is. Now, Arwin's repositioning of that to say, well, it might not be causal. Yeah, they're tied in terms of a correlation, but that doesn't necessarily make them causal. And then you look into this in the Bible, and it's like, well, you've got day and night being established, and then you've got the sun and moon, which do give off light and are described as luminary, ruling over the day and night. Not causing them, ruling over them. So you go, well, that lends more credence to Arwin's sort of dispelling of the idea that you've got this ball coming over a curve, because in Arwin's description, it's not even intrinsically causal. You know, it might just be governing over it rather than causing it, right? And then the Bible says pretty much that, and you go, wow, what Arwin was saying makes a lot of sense, and is backed because the Bible's slant on it is obviously God is always going to be the cause of these things. And if it's not phrased in such a way, you could end up with people saying, well, the light from the sun is actually causing us to have the day, so praise the sun.
Exactly.
Okay, but see that
I'm still not get.
no, I get it. I get it.
I don't get it.
No, I get it because Nathan's wired heliocentrically, as he said, but the sun. Now, this is the little change here. The sun is causing the light, as the Bible says, and it's not coming over a curve when it does. In that sense, it's no longer a heliocentric model. It's just here for, say, 12 hours, and then that's day, and then the 12 hours, it's not, so that's night, and then it repeats itself for times and seasons, days and months and years, as the Bible says it does. God has created things that do specifically what they're created for. I believe it comes from the sun. I believe the ambient light comes first, just like my flashlight example. Right. And eventually you see the lens, and then it goes away, and then you don't see the sun, but then you still see the ambient light as it goes away. And it's just, that's all it is. It's created to give us
I'm going to cut this short. It's nice that you believe that, and who knows, right? But yeah, the sun causes the light. Which light is that? The light it gives off as a luminary? Yes, you could definitely say the Bible backs that. Cause the daylight, I have never seen the sun cause daylight in a sentence.
I see it every day.
It hasn't been there.
Every day.
Nobody's shown it so
the
far.
The evening and the morning were the first day. Evening, morning was the first day.
Yeah, but how did you have the day without the luminaries?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, Chocolate. So the Bible says prior to the luminaries, God did it this other way, light. Then on day 4, after he got this, now you got to go to what preceded it. What preceded it was he got the earth ready for it, meaning the herb-yielding seeds, the fruit-bearing seed that's within itself, which describes an apple and orange and things like that. So the whole point is God is preparing for this transformation of the first light that did day and night to this next part where he creates inside the firmament all these lights that do what was being done prior without them. I don't read into it. That's just the narrative of how he did it.
Okay.
And you have your beliefs about it. And that's
I'm not trying to read into it either.
It's
just
scripture.
Last question.
For me.
Go on, Chocolate. Go. Chocolate, go.
No, I was just going to say, just for me being somebody that doesn't read the Bible like that, again, once you guys read those verses out, to me, it just seemed like, wow, that's interesting. Maybe the sun isn't the absolute cause of the daylight, because apparently there was day and night before there was a sun and moon, right?
Right.
So
but you're
now,
right. You're right.
When he creates them and puts them in the firmament, however he means that, I don't know. Does that mean absolutely that now these things are now the cause of that same light, that same day and night change? I don't know. Are they correlation? I mean, correlation we know is not causation, right?
Well, here I got one. I got a new passage that'll help in Q. You'll like this one.
Go ahead.
You guys see it? Who being in the brightness of his glory and the expression image of his person, and upholding all things by the power, the word of his power. So all things are held by the word of God.
Yeah. There's no question about that.
We all agree.
Everything. All things.
Yeah, we all agree. The genesis, the origin of all things will be God. And this phraseology is akin to that. But Chocolate saying it, Arwin saying it, I'm saying it. It's just interesting. Because you don't have necessity for the cause of day to be the luminaries. They're ruling over it. They've got dominion over it. But they're not the cause. In this case, the cause is God.
Right. And they give off their own light. That doesn't mean that they are giving off the daylight. It's never said like that, ever.
Right.
They're giving off the daylight. The sun gives the daylight. That's what he said.
This is so obvious.
Yeah, it governs over it. Has dominion over it.
God made the two great lights. He made them.
Yeah, and they give off, and they both give off light.
They're bigger than the other luminaries. That's right.
As this for phraseology. So the sun. So according to you, let's just buy into this for a second. So the sun gives off daylight, and the moon gives off
light.
and the
That
moon
makes
gives
day
off
we call day.
yeah, and the moon gives off the night light,
Yes.
which is dark.
What? No, it's a different type of light. The light's not dark though.
But both of those lights, both inherently are bright things that give off light. Right, but the one is not day and the other is not night. But they're both lights that exist within those time frames.
Well, the one. Hold on a second.
That's crazy.
If you,
they're not
in
no.
the same way, the sun doesn't cause day by our assertion in this instance. For an interesting discussion, we're not necessarily asserting this as carte blanche. Our thoughts. It's just us musing. Just for the audience's benefit. I've got an audience for a while. It's quite a comfortable conversation, isn't it?
You're off the reservation, dude.
I'm saying, by comparison, if you say sun causes day, then moon causes night, well, that's dark, right?
No, that's not what it's saying.
No.
No, that's exactly.
Well,
No.
Arwin's with me. Do you understand where I'm coming from, Arwin?
Yes, absolutely.
No,
I
I'll
see
read
it.
it.
It's causal
Let-
relations, and
So,
it's
yeah.
not
Wait.
timing.
So if it's
Night is
causally,
the
let me just
absence of light.
reassert
How
it.
can
Let me
a
just say
light
again. Let me just say
cause
again.
the night?
One more time. I'll just
You're
reassert
on
it.
Shrooms, man.
If I am to assert that the sun causes the day light, it's akin to saying the moon causes the night times darkness.
No, night light. Night light.
That's silly word games, man.
Night light, Nathan.
No sun
It
equals
causes
night.
the night light.
Word soup.
No.
It's heliocentric word
Sun
soup.
But what does the moon
causes
govern
light.
over? Hold on. Let's get the phraseology from the Bible. What's it saying the moon governs over specifically? What's the text in
Can
that
I
regard?
read it again?
Yes, please.
The night?
The night.
Yeah.
So it's not governing over the light of the night. It's governing over the night time, which is darkness.
Yeah. The light isn't the day.
That's
And
what
the
we're
night
saying.
isn't the light.
That's what we're bloody saying.
For God's sake, man.
That's what we're saying.
Oh my God.
The light isn't the day. Yeah, that's precisely our point.
But then
That is kind of the point, yeah, John.
And the moon isn't the dark. That's my point. To juxtapose it.
Define day.
Day would be the
sky
light
is
described in
blue.
the Bible when there's like a period of time with the light of the day, and the night is the antithesis of that. It's the dark of the night. And while the moon rules over the darkness of the nighttime with its light, the sun rules over the light of the day with its light. They're both lights. One rules over the darkness, one rules over the daylight. But neither are the cause.
Neither are the
Well,
cause
it's-
of day or night.
Yeah, the moon doesn't
Actually-
cause the darkness, and the sun doesn't
It's
cause
not
the
supposed
daytime.
to. It's
Yeah,
not supposed
yeah.
to, Nathan.
Oh goodness.
Verse 14 says it plainly in Genesis 1. Then God said, let there be lights in the firmament. Lights in the
Yeah,
firmament.
and they all shine with little
so
lights.
Now, hang on. Of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons and for days and years.
Yeah,
Okay,
signs.
Now,
Signs.
okay, so at
Hold on.
nighttime-
Let me just address that. So signs. So when we get the lights in a particular order, it's winter. But those lights being in that order aren't the cause of winter time. In the same way, nighttime isn't caused by the moon, and sun isn't cause of daytime.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, we're not saying anything against
Hold on,
that.
I'm getting a concession it. Did you say what was that, QE? Sorry, can you just repeat that?
I said what you said was correct.
Boom.
I think this is pedantic.
All right. Owen.
No.
Apparently, this point that we're correct about, it's just pedantic now. Apparently,
Look,
this is human nature. I'm never going to criticize the ballers ever again. It's human nature, isn't it? It's us. We're all just
Nathan.
like it.
Nathan,
It's
in verse-
academic behavior. We're also used to precision of words that now the Bible has come into scope, and we discovered something interesting. There's some
Hang on
people that don't really like the new insight. Maybe they
No,
have-
that's
Oh,
not
don't
it.
poke the
That's not
bear.
it.
This was fun till then.
Misinterpretation is not new insight. Verse
Oh,
15.
Oh, God, my God,
Verse-
10.
told
Come
you,
on.
Nathan.
No, I was polite. Verse 15.
Yeah.
Are you through whining?
Look,
All right.
10th's given us the
Verse
most input,
15.
so I think it's only reasonable that 10th has the last word. Go ahead, 10th.
Last
Well,
word.
no, it's not reasonable. Let others talk.
4 more hours.
Verse 15 says, which I never got to because we stopped, and let them, meaning the lights that we talked about, let them be lights in the firmament of the heavens. Now here's the purpose, to give light on the earth. They're there to give light on the earth. And it was so. Why are they there? Because when nighttime comes, God didn't want pitch darkness, so he made a night light for us. When daytime
Night
comes,
light.
it-
Let him finish.
Like a black light causing the darkness.
No, that's not fair.
no. Oh
Yeah,
my
everyone's
God.
groaning. With that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to everyone who joined us in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Of course, a massive thank you to today's Discord and G Plus panels for making today's after show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!